Good evening, everyone. I'd like to go ahead and take this moment to call our October 13th, 2020 Town of Windermere Council to order. It is 6 p.m. And Robert, did you go over the new rules? I did hear you, or the new decorum and chat box features.
I will right now. As some of you know, we now started a YouTube channel, so we're going to make sure that we strictly adhere to the decorum policies. Please make sure that you address all of your concerns and all of your questions to town staff or the town council. No addressing anything to other town residents. And again, you know, when somebody makes a statement, no booing, no clapping or anything like that. We want to make sure that we adhere to the decorum. In addition to that, if any language or, anything else occurs during the meeting, I may lock the meeting and then remove those persons that are responsible. In addition to that, we are going to start freezing the chat box. And the reason for that, that's a way for people to circumvent actually signing up for public speaking. So if you would like to comment on a certain item, please use the raise your hand option on your Zoom, and then we'll be able to call on you should the town council want to call on you. I know we just had several people just log in. If you do wish to speak, please go to the chat box now, and I'll keep it open for a couple minutes, and then after that, I'll go ahead and eliminate it after the public comment section is completed. So with that said, Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Robert. And all those individuals who just joined in, they're in the meeting now?
Yes, the last one is a Carol. So
okay, sounds good. Just want to make sure everybody's here. All right, and with that, we will have our salute to the pledge. Councilperson McKinley, would you lead us in the pledge, sir?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. If you'll join us in our invocation. Father, as always, we pray for your guidance and wisdom as we make decisions on behalf of our town and on behalf of our community. We always remember all of those that we're here to serve, and we always remember those who keep us safe day and night, our first line law enforcement, fire, safety. We also ask that you keep safe all of our soldiers around the world, both here and abroad. Amen. We'll go ahead and begin with our special proclamations and awards. First off tonight, we have our Windermere proclamation declaring November 7th through November 14th, 2020 as the Week of the Family. And this proclamation is as follows. Whereas the town of Windermere is blessed with a multitude of families, an essential part of the culture, social, and spiritual fabric of our community. And whereas the town of Windermere recognizes that strong families are the center of a strong communities, that children live better lives when their families are strong, and that families are strong when they live in communities that connect them to economic opportunities, social networks, and services. And whereas everyone has a role to play in making families successful, including neighborhood organizations, businesses, nonprofit agencies, policymakers, and families themselves. And whereas during the week of November 7th through November 14th, 2020, the town of Windermere residents should take time to honor the importance of families and recommit to enhancing and extending the special connections that support and strengthen them throughout the year. And whereas during this week, we urge residents of the town of Windermere to join other agencies and organizations throughout the county to honor and celebrate our families and the heroic efforts of each family member that makes the family stronger. Now, therefore, I, Jim O'Brien, Mayor of Town of Windermere, do hereby proclaim the week of November 7th through November 14th, 2020 as the Week of the Family in the town of Windermere, and we urge all citizens to share in this occasion. Certainly a nice proclamation, and we all know that we work very, very hard to make sure that our community is one that is a great place to raise a family. I think we do a really good job of that. All right. I did see, looks like, Robert, did you see Lander Robertson from the Office of Orange County Tax Collector, Scott Randolph has also joined us here?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they had a presentation or not.
Yep. Okay, we'll find out. Well, we can do that during, we're going to back up a little bit and go back to open forum public comment. We had several people sign up tonight. We want to make sure that everyone remembers those rules of decorum, and that also we try to limit our comment to 3 minutes. Who do we have on tap tonight?
The first one we have is Ann Finelli.
Ann, would you like to go ahead and state your name and address for the record and your public comment? You may need to unmute yourself.
Now, can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead, Ann.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, my name is Ann Finelli. I live at 400 West 2nd Avenue. And I live next door to the park here on 2nd Avenue. And first I want to talk about hedge height. The town of Windermere, part of my backyard borders the park here on 2nd Avenue. And the town does a great job at trimming the bushes there on the border to about 5 feet. I have the opposite problem next door to me, in that they're growing bushes that exceed 10 feet. They're, like 12, 13 feet, so over 2 times the height of the ones that border the park. And the problem is that I'm starting to feel boxed in with such tall hedges, and it's blocking my view of the lake. And I know, from what I understand, there was, I believe there was some past restriction on hedge height. I couldn't locate it. And if it's not there, I'm going to ask if you all would reconsider a hedge height in your ordinance.
And then Ann, I believe you want to talk about the boat houses. You have 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Oh, I thought I had 3 minutes for both. Anyway, yeah, the boathouses, we have the second one, and I believe the first one was built by the Palmers, and it was built 1913 to 1923. I guesstimate ours was built 1925 to 1940. And from what I understand, they far exceed they're about 80 years old. You guys are very well aware of the boathouses. I feel like they are important to the town, and just as important as the old schoolhouse is, with the architecture and style and being historic. And when we bought this house, we understood it to be a quitclaim deed, and I just wished, understanding the significance of it historically, and also that we're attached to them. I would, just like you guys to reconsider the termination of the leases, and also, strongly urge preserving them so they can get on the local register of historic places. I've actually done 2, can you all see me?
No.
I've actually done 2 paintings of the boathouses, and I was going to show them, but they're very important to the history, in my opinion, of Windermere. Just as much so as the schoolhouse.
Okay.
Thank you, Ann. We appreciate your comment. I believe we're going to take up the boathouse discussion at a later date. Appreciate your comments on that. And Robert, off the top of your head, I don't know that we have a hedge height ordinance. Is that correct?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, that's usually what you find in an HOA, but I
Right.
don't know of one in the town of Windermere. And relative to the boathouses, again, we're going to be sending out letters of notice of termination, because we don't want to pass that 90 days that we missed last time. Actually, we really didn't have 90 days because they were pretty much renewed the minute that they were executed. But that would give a chance for town council to discuss what they want to do with the boathouses in November, whether they want to renew the leases, put conditions on the leases, put it out for public bid, give it to the Historical Preservation Board, so on and so forth. So that'll be on the November discussion, because those leases do expire in February. And, people have questioned, who owns what, and I would direct them to their leases, especially section 12 and section 19. Section 12 pretty much tells them that they're going to have to vacate the boathouses, and section 19 means if they sue us, then they're going to have to repay us for any legal fees if they do file litigation. So I had that conversation today. That's why I know so much about the boat leases, but it's our intent to take it to town council and have them decide what they want to do with them.
I think Councilperson Williams also made note that the historical board was having some conversation as well about those boathouse preservation, and I'm sure that we'll have robust conversation moving forward. Who's next on our public forum?
Mayor, I had Tom Stroop.
Mr. Stroop.
You can defer to the item or speak now.
So can I defer to the item when we get to it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank
you, Tom. Just help us remember, sir.
Same for Dawn.
Okay, yeah, I have them both down here. And then Jim Willard. Jim, do you want to defer to the item of the dirt roads?
Robert, I'd rather wait until that item comes up on the agenda, please.
Perfect, thank you. Dean Miller, did you want to defer to the dirt road issue?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. Anime Klontz, would you like to defer to the road issue?
Yes, I'll defer. Thank you.
And then Brandy Haynes already stated that she would like to go ahead and defer. And then Mayor, we do have a special guest tonight. It is Landra Robeson. Hopefully I'm saying that right, from the Office of the Orange County Tax Collector, Scott Randolph. She would like to go ahead and comment briefly.
That's fine. I'd like to recognize.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor O'Brien, for recognizing me. And thank you to the council and all that you all do in Windermere and making these virtual meetings available to your constituents at this time. So that's definitely admirable. Just wanted to make a couple of quick announcements. Number one, we are hiring. So if you all know of anyone who is looking for employment who wants to work for the DMV, we are hiring at some of our offices. We will be closed on election day. So please note that we will not be open. All of our offices will be closed for election day. And if you all do need an appointment, because we are on an all appointment system, they are available same day because Mr. Randolph has actually implemented a new feature online that actually can give you up to the hour. Every hour it's updated with what appointments are available all over the county. So please take advantage of our new features, and thank you for all that you all do, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
You're more than welcome, and thank you. You guys provide excellent service, so we appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I'll pass that along to the tax collector.
Mayor, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and eliminate the chat section.
Sounds good. Any further public comment for the general meeting? All right, seeing none. We will go ahead and move to our special proclamations and awards. I jumped out ahead of myself. We already did the Week of the Family Proclamation. Councilperson Andert, would you like to have the honor of recognizing the Ways Committee tonight?
Sure, certainly would. We have several outgoing Way Committee members who provided excellent service in the inaugural year of that committee. First of all, of course, Grace Foglia, who is the outgoing chair and pretty much the voice and the driving engine of the entire committee. Certainly everyone played a part, and they all did an excellent job last year in kind of finding their way, to have a little pun there, but Grace had the vision for it and made sure that it came to fruition. So thank you to Grace, who is at Rollins College now enjoying her freshman year. We also have Rainey Carter, who's the outgoing secretary, Alec Alligood, who is the outgoing treasurer, Sarah Myers, Haley Martini, Mac Foster, Sarah Mitha, and Carson Montgomery, who are all graduated seniors from last year who served on that first year of the committee. I understand that we have some commemorative plaques that we're going to be providing to them. That's correct. right, Robert? Are those finished?
Yes, they're in my office.
Okay, and so those will be distributed. And also, I would like, if possible, to provide a handwritten thank you card to each of those members for their service. If there's some way that I can collect safely signatures from all of our council members, from the mayor and from Robert, to accompany those plaques when we're able to deliver them, I'd like to do so. So expect communication about that coming this week. But we thank you. We thank all of the Way Committee members. Looks like maybe Haley's on tonight. Haley Martini, are you on? Did I see your name on this?
Yes.
Rainey, I see Grace. Hi.
And we have Randy Carter on as well.
Wonderful. So nice to see some our officers and Haley. And I know that last year was a little bit challenging because you didn't get all of your projects and that you wanted to, but there was so much good spirit behind everything. And thank you. Thank you for everything. Does anyone, you want to say anything, Grace?
Sure. I'm just putting all of my well wishes to the Way Committee and all of the new members. I'm so excited, and hopefully they'll be able to get to do lots of projects. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they all do. So, and I'm glad that everyone helped make this possible, and it was such an amazing thing we started in the town.
It really was. Thank you to all of you, and good luck this year.
Thank you all very much for your
Thank you all.
service. Yeah, we appreciate that, and we'll be looking to you guys to be our future town council. So just check mark that in and go ahead and qualify soon.
They all learned everything about Robert's rules of running a meeting, right, Robert?
Not my personal rules, but yes, Robert's rules.
Yes, we know.
Well, they can probably do better than some of us then. So excellent. Good job. Thank you guys again. Enjoy college for sure. We'll move then now. Thank you, Councilperson Ander. We'll move now to timed items and public hearing. Tonight, we will have a public hearing for 111 West 5th Avenue. And this will be our final public hearing for major development proposed commercial building. And I will go ahead and close our Town of Windermere Council meeting at 6:18 p.m. and open up a public hearing to discuss the final public hearing for major development proposed commercial building for 111 West 5th Avenue. Anyone who wishes to speak or add comment may at this time. Any hands raised, Robert?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Seeing no comment at this time, we will go ahead and close our public hearing at 6:19 p.m. and reopen our Town of Windermere Council meeting at 6:19 p.m. Council, in front of you, you have our Z20-07. We're looking for final public hearing, or sorry, we're looking for final approval for 111 West 5th Avenue major development. Council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilperson McKinley. We have a second from Councilperson Ander, and we have Councilperson Williams abstaining. Is that correct, sir? Okay, I see thumbs up, so let that be noted for the record. Any comment, Council? Seeing no comment, we will begin voting with Councilperson Ander.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Okay, and let the record show that the major development proposed commercial building for 111 West 5th Avenue approved 4-0 by council, with Councilperson Williams abstaining. Council, you're welcome. Items number 4 is our consent agenda items, 4A and 4B. Council, as you know, you can review these as and approve as one item, or you can separate them out and pull them for comment. Direction?
Would like to separate the two.
Thank you, Councilperson McKinley. We'll pull these items as separate. So we'll go to item A. This is item Z20-12. This is 1221 Oakdale Street, And this is a variance to allow a 15-foot front yard setback and a 10-foot side yard setback for non-contiguous corner lot. The DRB recommended to allow a 15-foot front yard setback on East 12th Avenue to maintain the required 15-foot side setback on the southern property line. DRB voted 3-1. I believe we have Brad to present on this item.
Yes, sir. Be happy to.
Brad, would you do so, sir?
Yes, sir. I'll give you an update here. And just so everyone knows, I am Brad. I'm not Sherry. Sherry is my wife. I'm using her account tonight. I'm with Waitrim and serve as a town planner. As the mayor said, this is the hearing for the zoning case Z20-12. It's a variance at 1221 Oakdale Street in Windermere. This is a lot is at the corner of Oakdale and 12th Avenue. And what's somewhat unusual about this property is the portion of 12th Avenue that's adjacent to it's an undeveloped portion of the right-of-way. However, that part of the right-of-way is utilized by the town as drainage. There's actually drainage facilities within that right-of-way that's there adjacent to the property. The town's code, it has a standard when you have a corner lot and it's defined as being on the right-of-way, and Robert's showing you there that on the undeveloped part of West 12th Avenue. It requires you to maintain a 25-foot setback off of your two roadways or right-of-ways. So that would be a 25-foot setback off of the portion of 12th and 25 off of Oakdale. And then because this is a non-contiguous corner lot, meaning it's not adjacent to another corner lot, on the other property side property line, it has to be 15 feet. So those are the standards. The applicant, the home that they're proposing to build on the site would not fit within those limitations, and that's why they're requesting for the variance to go from 25 feet to 15 feet along 12th Avenue, and then from 15 feet to 10 feet on the other side property line. So that was the request. When the Development Review Board had the public hearing, there was quite a bit of discussion about this case. And the Development Review Board did agree with reducing the setback along West 12th Avenue from the 25 to the 15. So they did not object to that. And they do recommend approval of reducing it from 25 to 15 as requested because of it's not adjacent to an actual road. It's adjacent to basically unimproved or to a stormwater facility that's maintained by the town. However, on the other side property line of the 15, that's 15, where the applicant requested to go to 10, the Development Review Board was concerned that that would be too close, bringing it to 10 feet. We also did receive a notice of objection from the property owner that's adjacent to that side property line. So they also objected to reducing it from 15 to 10 feet. The DRB felt that they could design a house within the 15 feet on 12th and maintaining the 15 feet on the other side property line, and they could still design a house to fit that. So the council is aware this is a typical lot size. It's a 100-foot wide lot, so it's not an unusually small lot in terms of lot width. It is 100 feet wide, so there is it's a typical lot size in the town, actually a little bit wider than a typical 80-foot lot. So the DRB, as the mayor said, and as in the report, they did recommend approval to reduce from 25 to 15 on West 12th Avenue, but maintain the 15 feet on the other side property line. In terms of our public notices, we sent out the public notices, received 6 in support. We received 6 in objection, and 2 of those 6 in objection were from both of the property owners that are on either side of the property. And then we received 2 letters that were partly in support, partly in objection. Those letters supported reducing the variance along West 12th Avenue, but did not support the variance reduction along the other side property line, asking for maintaining the 15, which is what the DRB did recommend. So that is my presentation. I do know Mr. Sharp is online with us. He is the applicant. I believe Mr. Sharp will like to address the council as well.
That is fine, Brad. I'll recognize Mr. Sharp. If he'll give his name, address for the record.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Don Sharp. I reside at 3985 Atrium Drive over here in Orlando. Appreciate your time tonight, guys. Yeah, we did have some deliberations between the DRB. They were great. We understand this property is just kind of a unique circumstance. If we didn't have that kind of dead space on the right of way, the setbacks on each side of my home would be a little bit different. That's kind of what we were running with on the initial feasibility study that we did on the home. Obviously, we kind of got caught, realized that we weren't, and by caught, I mean, obviously we haven't begun construction of this home. Caught meaning that we were caught off guard, that this property was unique, and the interpretation based on the Town of Windermere's code actually kind of what I would say would be considered as continuous frontage. And we're not treating that as a side street at all. So it's just a different way of looking at the code. But after, bringing this to the DRB's attention, I believe coming to that resolution of 15 feet on the interior, 15 feet on the 12th Avenue side, we could definitely make that work and keep everybody happy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Brad, what is so just for clarification, Brad, the setback from Oakdale is what?
The requirement is 25 feet. Their plan
Right.
actually is they're at over 60 feet, just over 60. So their issue on the setbacks was really just on the side. They were well beyond the required along Oakdale, and they were also well beyond the 50-foot off of the lake. So it was just on the sides is where they were having the issues.
Okay, thank you, sir. Council, any questions for Mr. Cornelius or the applicant?
I have some.
Go ahead, Councilperson Andrew.
Okay. So first of all, is this the property that has the 420 sailboat hull that needs a lot of love that's on the property?
That I know of. Mr. Sharp, are you aware? I don't know.
To my knowledge, this property is 100% vacant.
Okay. I thought I saw a hull from an old 420 sailboat. It's a boat that a lot of high school sailors use. And I was just wondering if there were plans to remove it or restore it or anything like that. I'm a sailor, that's all. Okay, so I appreciate the willingness to, on the south side setback, adhere to the 15 feet that was suggested by DRB. I do have concerns about, so I saw in comments, and I saw particularly from resident Mr. Donald Greer's comment too, regarding the stormwater retention area that the town now maintains on that north setback. My question is for, I guess, either Brad or for Robert or both, but I'm wondering if we will still be able to have the same performance regarding stormwater management if we allow the reduction in the setback to that side.
Yes, the development of this lot won't impact any of the town's facilities within that drainage area, that drainage easement. They will also be required, as any other new construction in the town, to maintain the first inch of stormwater on their own site. So it should have no impact on the town's facilities in that area.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councilperson Andrew. Council, any further questions, comments?
Yeah, just real quick on my end. So I understand the two front yards, and I believe when we put the code together, 25 feet on both of those sides was to prevent a house from sticking out further than the facade of the next door neighbor, and they did not account for a lot of this nature. But my question is, why on these non-contiguous lots? Is it 15 feet as opposed to 12.5 feet? Because my understanding, the code would allow 2.5 feet. Let's just say if that stormwater retention was there or there wasn't a right of way there.
Right. Yeah, and it is a unique part of the town's code. The town treats corner lots in two different manners depending on whether it's a contiguous or non-contiguous corner lot. And I'll say that's a bit unique here in Florida, at least in my experience. So if this was a contiguous corner lot, meaning it was adjacent to another corner lot, maybe like the lot across the street, across Oakdale from them, that has another corner lot next to it, the standards for a contiguous corner lot actually allows that standard side setback to be, the 12.5% of the lot width, whether that's 10 or 12.5 or, whatever the lot width is. So it treats it differently. And then I think, as you said, Mr. Sapp, if this was just a standard lot at 100 foot wide, the standard setback would be 12.5 feet of the lot width. The 100-foot lot, so it'd be 12.5 feet on either side. I can't say why the code was written that way. That's the way the code is written. It is a little, I will say it is a little bit difficult in implementation and to explain to people why it's that way. But it is that way, and that's what we have to work with.
Thank you, Brad.
Yes, sir.
Councilperson Sapp, any further questions, sir?
No, I'm ready to make a motion to approve on DRB's recommendation of 15 foot on both side setbacks.
I'll second.
Councilperson Sapp is the motion maker. Councilperson Andrew is the second. Any further comments, council? Councilperson Martini sits as the liaison for this committee. We may want to hear from him. I don't know. Bill, do you have any comments, sir?
I don't, Mayor. I agree with the DRB's recommendation.
Councilperson McKinley?
Yeah, I have a question on the 25 or the 15-foot setback off of Oakdale.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah. Oakdale, it would be 25 feet, sir.
Okay, it's 25 foot off of Oakdale. So it's not going to stick out any closer to Oakdale, which is the main.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct?
Correct. And actually now they have the house proposed. It'll actually be 60 feet off of Oakdale is how they're proposing to construct the house.
Got it. Okay.
Any further comment, question, council? Okay, seeing none, we'll begin voting with Councilperson Martini.
Aye.
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 And motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Next up is item B. This is Z20-13, and this is a variance request to allow the placement of a generator in the front yard of another corner lot. DRB recommends approval for to zero, and this property is 12037 Lake Butler Boulevard. Brad, are you presenting on this as well, sir?
Yes, sir. I can give you a quick presentation on this. Again, this is Z20-13. The property is 12037 Lake Butler Boulevard, and the owner is Mr. Tompkins. As the mayor said, what this variance request is for Mr. Tompkins to place the generator on the side of this house. The reason for the need for the variance is this is a corner lot. He's at the corner of Lake Butler Boulevard and Park Avenue. And the way the code is defined, a corner lot has two front yards. So he has a front yard on Lake Butler and a front yard on Park Avenue. The placement of mechanical equipment like a generator is required to be in your side or rear yard. So this is because it's technically the front yard, it had to come through the variance process with it. What is unique about Mr. Tompkins' property is that side yard buffer along Park Avenue is very heavily landscaped. It's not visible from Park Avenue. He actually already has some other mechanical equipment on that side. You can see his AC units there on that side, but it's heavily screened from Park Avenue. It's not visible. And that's the request. The Development Review Board did review this at their meeting. They did recommend approval unanimously. They did find that there was a hardship and unique circumstance of this lot, giving the frontage and the enhanced landscaping that will block any view of the generator. We sent out notices for this request and we received 4 in support of the request. We have Mr. Tompkins online with us. I don't know if he wants to address the council or not, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mayor, if I can add to that, the DRB found this to be a preferable location for the generator because it faces Park Avenue, and on the other side of the house is another residence. So it's on the complete opposite side of anyone that would be bothered by the noise of the generator. There's nothing on the side where they want to place this other than Park Avenue. I think it's 200 some feet to the nearest residence beyond that. Brad, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Councilperson Martini. Mr. Tompkins, did you want to add any comment from the applicant perspective? All right, seeing none. Council, any further questions on this item? All right, we'll take that as no. Looking for a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay, I think that was Councilperson Williams. Councilperson Martini, can we
I'll
count
second.
yours as a second? All right.
Yes, sir. I'll second.
Councilperson Martini is the second on the motion. Any further discussion, council? Seeing none, begin voting with Councilperson Martini.
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries unanimously. Consent agenda item 4B. Under new business tonight, council, we have 1, 2, 3 sets of meeting minutes. Our town council meeting minutes for September 8th, 2020. Our town council tentative budget hearing minutes for September 9th, 2020. And our town council final budget hearing minutes of September 21st, 2020. Council, you can approve all of these in one motion, or you may pull or make any revisions as you see fit.
Motion to approve all minutes.
Motion to approve all by Councilperson McKinley. Looking for second.
Second.
Second from Councilperson Williams. Any discussion, council? Seeing none, begin voting with Councilperson Andrew.
Aye.
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 Thank you, council. We have some appointments in your package. These appointments are for Roger Hines for the Development Review Board. Item number 2 is Jake Karsten for the Ways Committee. Item number 3 is Annie Misra for the Ways Committee. I hope I said that right. And Catherine Hay is item number 4 for the Ways Committee as well. Council, again, you can approve these all as one item. Would that be all acceptable here, Robert, to approve them all as one, or do we want individual?
No, you can approve them all as one.
Okay, council, you can approve all of these items 1 through 4 as one item if you so desire.
Motion
Looking
to
for a
approve.
motion. Motion from Councilperson Andrew.
Second.
Second from Councilperson McKinley. Any discussion? Seeing none, begin voting with Councilperson Martini.
Aye.
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 Thank you, council, for the appointments, and thank you for all those willing to serve on our committees. We appreciate it, and you're a vital part of our government here. Item E is for finance. We have 2 items tonight. Item number 1 is our CARES Act purchase of an aeroclave system with a not to exceed amount of $15,000. This is a decontamination machine. Staff recommends approval. Council, any comment, questions on this item? Other than, can I borrow it? All right, seeing none, council, look for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve,
Second.
Councilperson Martin. Second, Councilperson Williams. Any further comment, questions, council? Seeing none, begin voting with Councilperson Martini.
Aye.
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 All right, I think we got 5 there. It sounded like 5. All right, excellent. Item number 2 is our CARES Act purchase of a Vicon system, not to exceed $20,000. This is a thermal body temperature measurement camera, or cameras, I'm sorry. Council, do you all have the information that you need for this, or would you like any comment from staff?
I'm good.
I'm good.
We'll look for a motion to approve then, seeing none.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Councilperson McKinley.
Second.
Second, Councilperson Martini. Any further comment, discussion, council? Seeing none, we'll begin voting with Councilperson Andrew.
Aye.
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 Okay, great job. And kudos to staff on these items. We've been very aggressive with the CARES Act money. Proud of everybody, and I know that takes some work, but these are things that'll benefit our town and community for a long time to come. And there's a lot of money out there that's been sitting out there for COVID and CARES Act that a lot of folks aren't taking advantage of. So I'm proud of us for doing that.
Thank you much, Mayor. And I do believe that Wesh will be doing a news story on our purchase of these thermal body temperature cameras. And again, it's going to be used so it's easier to, we don't have to wand everybody. We'd be able to put them on tripods and actually see live stream of people's body temperatures as they enter a facility.
Sounds good for council meetings. You can make you sweat sometimes. So good stuff. All right, thank you guys, and I appreciate all of our efforts there and all the staff's efforts. It's really smart of us to be careful with our funds and utilize other options whenever we can. Item F. This is other items for consideration. This is item F1. This is minimal standards for dirt roads discussion. I'm going to, so this is a kind of a complex executive summary. If council will allow me a little leeway here, I'm going to go ahead and toss this to Robert first, so we can kind of set up exactly what we need to accomplish tonight with this, because it's like I said, it's pretty in depth, and I want to make sure that we understand all the ramifications in front of us. After which point we'll have the remaining public comment. We have several people queued up for comment on this item as well. Robert.
Okay. Yeah, we've been discussing this for the last 2 weeks now. I think it's actually more than that, relative to specifically actually West 2nd Avenue and Butler and 7th. And I believe next week we start doing the Bessie Basin stormwater project discussions with the residents prior to us taking it to a workshop later on this month. But the intent tonight is because right now we have 3 grants that were awarded to us via the local mitigation strategy funds, which is directly connected with Hurricane Irma. And when we submitted these for these grants, we pretty much generalized, that there's flooding issues in these areas. Especially when there's heavy downpours, it creates a public safety, health, welfare issue, especially some access issues based on the washouts and floodings that have occurred in the past. And they graciously awarded us these 3 projects. Again, these are 3 individual projects for 3 different contracts. So not one project is tied to another. They're completely independent of each other. West 2nd Avenue, that's $1 million project. The Butler project, just so I'm not misquoting, and I can actually give you the exact figures. For the 7th and Butler project, we were awarded about $82,000 for the design and construction costs between $500,000 and $700,000. For the Oakdale, 9th, East, 3rd, and Magnolia, it's about a $90,000 design cost and $1.1 million construction cost. So if you add up all 3 of those, you're looking at around, again, that $3 million that we've been quoting for several weeks now. Now, the only reason that we're here tonight really is, Kinley Horn Associates has been tasked with coming up with a concept. And when we were awarded these grants and we, figured out when we signed these grants, in order to comply with the contracts associated with these grants, we have to meet minimum federal, state, and engineering standard guidelines. Meaning we have to meet green book shoulder widths, minimum lane widths when it comes to the roadways. And then, because this is a dirt road and we want to maintain the dirt roadways, it's going to be including a swale system. Now, the swale system, it all depends on, what slope you want, if you want to put piping in. So there's a lot of variables when it comes to the actual swale system. But also the town council approved the water master utility plan, and the minimum that Orange County Utilities will allow us is 6 feet for them to access that off of the street. So the minimum width for the recommendation from Kinley Horn Associates and staff right now for Butler and 7th project would be for 3 foot of shoulder, which is Green Book standard, 18 foot of dirt road, 6 foot, which is the minimum standard for a water utility, and then a swale, which would be a 4-to-1, which is about 8 feet, and then 3.5 foot flat bottom. And then it's a 3-to-1 for an additional, I believe, 6 feet house on, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. And the reason for that typical concept, again, is we wanted to make sure that we were utilizing the minimum amount of right-of-way as possible, because we understand, again, we want to maintain the charm of the town. We want to make sure that we were trying to be as least intrusive as possible to the adjoining neighbors, even though their properties are actually their perception of the property is actually the right-of-way. It's actually the town's property, but they take it as their own. We understand that, so we try to be mindful of that during a lot of our conversations. But the fact of the matter is, in order to keep this money and move forward with the projects, because right now we haven't even started design, if the town is not willing to meet these minimum standards for these 3 projects only, then in order for us to maintain our status as in good faith with the grantors, we would like to go ahead and give that money back. Again, none of these 3 are tied to each other, so us as staff want to know, do you want us to go ahead and proceed with meeting those minimum guidelines, and then coming up with a plan moving forward just for projects for funding? This has nothing to do with all dirt road projects in and around town. This is only if we are going to proceed with these grant funds. Now with West 2nd Avenue, there really hasn't been any pushback. We're going to be taking a look at some issues that people have raised relative to Forest and 2nd intersection. Again, right now we're at the concept level and we'll be getting into design. I don't believe Mike Valora is on the call right now. And John Fitzgibbon is actually out right now meeting with residents on West 2nd Avenue. So when we get into the actual design, there's some issues around Old Dirt Main and 2nd that we have to correct, as well as, we need to have some further discussions relative to Forest and 2nd at that intersection. But pretty much the rest of the way, there hasn't been any issues or any objections. For Butler and 7th, that's a different story. There has been some objections, but and Bessie, for that stormwater basin project, based on what happens tonight, if we're going to move forward, and with the understanding that we're going to move forward with those minimum Green Book standards, that's the type of concept that we're going to be coming back with. It might not be the same exact as Butler and 7th, but again, our whole town council wants to do is maintain the dirt roadways and have the least amount of impact as possible to the residents. And I think that plan as presented right now is the best plan that we've come up with.
Bullshit.
Excuse me, Mr. Kenneth Kunkel. I'm going to go ahead and mute you. As I said, if there is any decorum violations, we will remove you. So right now, I'll just give that as a warning. But Mr. Kunkel, if there's any additional comments like that, we will remove you from the meeting. So with that said, Mayor, it's just, do you want direction to council? Do you want us to move forward with these grants or not?
Thank you, Robert. So again, what we're talking about this evening, and we're going to have public comment in just 1 second. You're not designing the project tonight, but what we need to give staff direction on is whether we're going to adhere to the minimum standards that will allow us to utilize the grant funding itself. So with that, I know we have several people who deferred on public comment. I know I have Dean Miller, Tom and Don Stroop, Brandy Haynes, Jim Willard, that I jotted down. I believe there were a couple others.
Yeah, I have the order, Mayor, if you want me to go through.
Okay.
The first
Go
one,
ahead.
the first
Yeah,
one is
call those.
Tom Stroop.
Yeah, go ahead and call those, Robert. Thank you.
Tom Stroop.
I'm here.
All right, and again, we have 3 minutes.
Okay. Things did change a little bit last night after I became aware that this project did not have to be done in order to save the other monies at the other two projects. So from that point, I can only speak to this location we have here. We can fix all of these problems for less, and we can use our in-house experts. I mean, Scott's an expert, Travis is an expert. We can use the people that are here to fix that problem. And I have to believe it's going to be a lot less than what the grant money would require if we do the extravagant 41-foot path. Once we clear that 41-foot path, we can't go back. It's a 41-foot path all the way from Maine down to Butler that's taken 100 years to establish, and is part of the charm of Windermere, that we can never go. We can't look back on it like we did on all the other, some of the other jobs and say, oops, that didn't work. We can't make this mistake and say, okay, we'll put everything back the way it was. I can't speak to the other location. This all worked before the asphalt was put down. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that before that, it all worked. And I think that we can make it work again with the resources that we have. My proposal is that we drop this grant on the 7th and Butler location, that we fix all the problems with the in-house resources that we have. I know we can do it, put it back to the way it originally was, and not put a 41-foot path from Main Street all the way down to Lake Butler that we cannot put back.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Tom,
thank-
can you, I'm sorry, Tom, can you provide your address for the record, sir?
201 West 7th Avenue.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay. Mayor, the next one I had on the record is Don Stroop.
Okay, hi. Of course, I'm gonna, mirror a little bit what Tom said, but I do want to say thank you for the meeting last night, because it did answer a few more questions and, and more concessions that were made, and, understandably, trees and landscaping. And I do feel it came down, from the 60 feet, but, based on the fact that this is not tied to the other grants, I feel like, I honestly feel like all our neighbors are saying the same thing. We want to fix the stormwater runoff, but we just want a smaller footprint. If there's any way we could do it with a smaller footprint, even, if it's something similar to what is proposed, but without the minimum Green Book standards, we could get down to, a smaller, just smaller overall, I guess is what I'm hoping to say. And, that would be appreciated, just for traffic calming again on, the boats going down to the lake. And we have a lot of, and then we have a lot of walking, biking, runs and everything on our roads. So just anything you do to make a swale smaller, to make a road smaller, to make a little bit and still achieve the same goal, we would appreciate that consideration. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
The next one we had is Jim Willard.
Good evening, Robert.
Good evening.
I tend to agree with Don. I live at 228 West 7th Avenue, and about a year and a half ago, after the road was, asphalt was put down and graded, the road bed came up about 8 inches, and that summer we suffered 2 flooding instances where water came off of 7th Avenue into our house twice and had to be cleaned up. So above all else, we would very much like to see the drainage on 7th Avenue corrected permanently. And the plan that, that the town and Robert has proposed certainly will do that. And to that degree, we're in favor of it. Much like Don, however, if it is possible to do the roadway in a manner that does not impact other properties as significantly as this appears to be with the widened road, whether the swale can be narrowed or the berm can be narrowed, we would be in favor of that. But the drainage elements of the plan work for us, and we would endorse that. I do have one question, Robert. During the previous presentations, you talked about the ability to put in potable water down 7th and Butler, and the necessity of the 6-foot berm for that.
Shoulder, flat shoulder.
A flat shoulder, okay. If that improvement is not made, does that eliminate the opportunity for potable water to be put down 7th and Butler?
I don't know, because there currently is water at certain locations, but if we were to go ahead and follow our master plan and get a 6-inch line, especially if we're going to be putting in fire hydrants for fire flow, then we would need to meet Orange County utility standards.
So access to potable water would be a very favorable thing.
And fire flow protection too with the hydrants.
All right, that's all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willard. Your address, sir?
Oh, 228 West 7th Avenue.
Thank you.
The next one I had on here, Mayor, is Dean Miller.
Mr. Miller, sir, don't forget to give us your address, sir.
Thank you, Jim. Dean Miller, 625 Butler Street. I couldn't agree more with Dawn and Jim. We all realize that we definitely need to mitigate our stormwater, and we need to make sure that we're protecting everybody, all our neighbors, to ensure that there's no flooding or anything like that. That's first and foremost, as well as protecting the lakes. I think we're all saying the same thing, that we're just asking that we revisit the design, especially on these streets, and see if there's a way that we can come to some middle ground that will allow us to, not be so intrusive and more consistent with the town's character. I think, as Jim mentioned, a lot of our issues on the street really started to arise when the asphalt millings were placed out here. The road was raised, and it seemed to create more of a raceway for the water. And if we could remove that or come up with a different solution, I think that would really help. Lastly, I just want to thank Town Council. You guys have been amazing and so available, and attending charrettes, Q&As, walking the streets, meeting with us to hear our concerns, and also just on your own time. We've seen you all just walking the streets just to take a look for yourselves. And that also goes for, our town manager as well. So we want to thank you for that, and appreciate us being able to express, our thoughts on our concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thanks, Dean.
Thank you.
The next person I had, Mayor, is Anna Mae Klontz.
Anna Mae, if you'll give your address for the record.
632 Butler Street.
Go ahead.
I think I've submitted lots of comments, both verbally and in writing. I think you all have my latest letter. I guess my question is, first of all, I've been at my address for 33 years. There was a drainage issue prior to the asphalt being added to the road. I believe the asphalt was added to the road because every time we had significant rain, the roads were, big ruts were created in the roads where they had to put cones and we had to drive around them. I have at times had to park my car and walk because I couldn't navigate the roads. And I believe the asphalt was placed to address that issue. And then what happened was the drainage became worse. But I want to point out that it's always been an issue. It has always come down my shared driveway with the Teglers. And after the asphalt and after some of the modifications that other people made, it started coming over the side of my property. I think everyone has seen the video I sent. Listen, I would love to do this, and I'd love to keep everybody happy with the look and with their right-of-ways. But my concern is, how are we going to pay for this? It sounds like, this is going to cost significant money. And from what I've read and heard, is that we don't have that money. A year ago, It was proposed that part of the roads be paved to put drains in the center. And while I didn't want to see the roads paved, I said we need to fix our drainage, and I would agree to that. And that was shot down. Now we had another plan put forward, and you know, that again was met with resistance, and the town and the engineers came back with, I feel, a greatly modified plan. I watched the video. It's saving the trees. It's taking care of the drainage issues. And so my vote is to support the plan and to support the funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Mae.
Mayor, and the last one that I had was Brandy Haynes, and then we do have a hand raised.
Okay, go ahead. Brandy, please.
Can you guys hear me all right?
We can, Brandy.
Okay, sorry if you hear any background noise. I'm kind of out and about, but so I will admit I didn't get to be a part of the meeting last night. Unfortunately, I had things going on that I just couldn't attend. But my opinion all along has been the same as it is now, that I think we need a smaller footprint. I think we need to seek out other sources of funding and not go this route, because I don't think it's in line with what the majority of people want. And I know that, for example, on, mine street, which is 9th and Oakdale, a portion of Oakdale, the first couple of years I was there, we wasn't until development happened at 220 East 9th Street, and also the two huge houses across from me that are the new developments at 836 Oak, the address for the new one because it was a created address. But along Oaks alone, there's 160 feet for two properties that a swale already exists. It's higher than the grade was finalized.
Mayor, I lost contact.
Going along nice.
Brandy, we're not, Brandy, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah. Okay, did you hear anything?
We did. We heard right up until the 100 feet of swale, I believe, was where we lost you.
Okay, so
Brandy, we can't hear you at all now. So what we'll do is we'll go to the individual that has their hand raised at this point.
And that's discretion of town council is to go with people raised hands. Again, they would get the same 3 minutes as everybody else. So
correct. And do we have
the hand
like
raised?
We just have one person. So
yeah, it's Judy Walker. So Miss Walker.
Hi, Judy Walker, 615 Butler Street. We're the house just north of the Millers, and we would be the first house impacted by the swell if that plan goes through. And I just wanted to let you know that we would really prefer a smaller footprint if that is possible, while still helping those with issues with flooding. So all the things that Dawn and Tom and Dean said, we agree with, and I won't take up your time by repeating them. And I want to thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Do we have Brandy back or no?
I don't know. Do you?
We do. So go ahead and go ahead if you want to complete your thoughts. We want to get everybody's input here.
Okay. If not, I'll try and chat it. But right now it says I'm blocked. So if I screw up again, if you guys can unblock my chat, I can always type it. But basically, there's existing swales that have just not. They weren't, when everything was finalized with the construction on all three of those properties that surround me, they were higher than the road. So they have not functioned properly. And I just don't see the point, whether it's grant money or not, of spending all this money till we at least fix what is there, because it worked for years. And the only reason it's not is because all that construction happened around me and it was never put back to the way it was supposed to be. It was never maintained during construction. And, we never had issues until then. And we even had a culvert that was filled in, and I know this town didn't do it, but we had a culvert going down 9th Street on the north side of the street that was concreted in. So if those things were put back in place, I think it would solve the problem there. But I think generally throughout the entire town, nobody wants to see that wide a footprint, and neither do we. So hopefully you got all that.
I did, Brandy. Thank you. And your address,
Okay.
real quick.
835 Oakdale Street.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It's fine. So at this point, council, we have some difficult and important decision making in front of us here. So you guys have all had the opportunity to participate at many, many levels and have the information in front of you. Staff is looking for our direction. We have a couple things that I want us to make sure that we consider, that we make sure that we are. I want us to look at these items as not just for the roadway that they're on, but if you look at certain areas and certain projects, you'll look at protecting the lake. Other projects you're looking at also impact other storm retention projects, such as the First Avenue Basin and Second Avenue, and in terms of that project. So we have a lot to think about. So we'll go ahead and open it up for comment, question, discussion.
Mayor, I've got some questions for engineers and things like that. If I may have a mouthful here, so I'll try to keep my thoughts.
It's okay. Councilperson Sapp, take your time. It's important.
So first of all, I'd like to try to break this down in sections to make it easier for me to be a little bit more coherent on the thought process. And I believe just blanketing the project as a 41-foot swath is an oversimplification. So just trying to understand here, what we're agreeing and disagreeing on, between us council members. So I'll start with the 3-foot grass shoulder. And these are more rhetorical questions, and then I'll have some questions for our engineers. But do we agree on this 3-foot shoulder? That's a fair guideline to allow vehicles to pull over. Maybe, for example, the mail, the trash, the lawn maintenance vehicles, maybe help with rainwater percolation from the abutting properties. I do think so. The 18-foot roadway, we definitely had pushback on the 20-foot. The 18-foot, once we saw the videos taken by staff, and I think our own assessments going on the road and doing our own measurements, it basically stays the same in most places, and actually reduces in others. So I think we may possibly be agreement on keeping those roads kind of where they're at 18 feet. And then we get to the 6-foot shoulder, which I think we should agree that, council wants to put potable water throughout the town. So we need that 6 foot to house, repair, replace water lines without disturbing the road and causing safety issues. And also house other utilities, for example, Lake Apopka natural gas. So I'm thinking that we can possibly agree on that. So where we get to is the swales, which a lot of people talked about last night and tonight. We can, like I said, agree that the road size may not be an issue due to little impact that it has. So the swale will be our biggest hurdle. So I wanted to talk through this a little bit with the engineers. And we obviously do have a flooding problem. Let's not get caught in the weeds about how it's paid for. So to how, I'd like to pose the question, would you approach the pitch of the road, the swale system as a whole, or any of the engineering down Butler Street or 7th Avenue any differently if we took the method of payment out of the equation? And remember, council committed to dirt roads, and I think we're all looking for a permanent fix.
Yes, no, regardless of funding, we would not approach it differently. This is the proper approach to address the drainage issue for the entire basin while working with the constraints of the dirt roads and doing our best to preserve the trees. So regardless of funding, this is the engineering solution that we would recommend. Okay.
And my understanding is we take care of the whole basin then, as a permanent solution. It reminds me of the analogy of a snowball. So on a snow-covered hill, it starts out small. As it rolls down, it gains more mass and surface area. By the time it gets to the bottom, it almost resembles a boulder. So would this be a good assessment how the drainage basin works as it is? The top may have very little rainwater, but by the time it gets to the bottom, it has much more of a resemblance of a stream or cascading effects. Can you just verify that my assessment or analogy fits that?
It does, and I'd just like to add a little bit to that. What you're talking about is a more localized drainage approach. If, for instance, if you're looking at Forest Street or 7th between Forest and Main, that's kind of the beginning of the basin, so you do have less runoff in that area. But if you don't have the swales to control that, you wouldn't be able to capture that upstream to convey it downstream. And so basically it would be dependent upon rain events, erosion, and maintenance. And a lot of times it travels down the middle of the road, which causes the washouts. So I know it's not that, from what I hear, I know that it's not that bad between Forest and Main Street. But it's just, we're trying to convey the water from the top of the basin to the bottom of the basin. Now, even if you don't do swales at the top of the basin, it's going to find its way down to the bottom of the basin. So where those swales are, they will still be about the same size based upon our design for a 25-year storm event.
So, and then in regards to the swale sizes, can you just describe the advantages and disadvantages of shallower swales over larger surface area, or deeper swales with a smaller surface area? And doing deeper swales, if we were to do deeper swales, maybe with some sort of piping system, what would be the total area of reduction?
Sure. So with swales, it's all about volume. So if you go deeper, that is an option, but you have to remember the 1 to 4 front slope and the 1 to 3 back slope. So just because you go deeper doesn't mean you have less of a horizontal footprint, because every foot deeper you go, you're adding basically 4 foot on the front slope and 3 foot on the back slope. So sometimes going deeper actually makes the horizontal footprint bigger. Now, in order to reduce the footprint that we currently have, which is 14 feet, which is the maximum that we're proposing, the swales could be smaller, near the beginning of the basin upstream. We could shallow the ditch to about 1 foot deep as opposed to 1.5 feet, but you do need a ditch. Even with inlets, you have to have a ditch to convey the runoff to the inlets, or else you're only catching isolated water and you're not catching water along the whole run of road. So what we could do is, if we added ditch bottom inlets and pipes, we could possibly reduce the footprint by 3.5 feet. So you go down from 14 to 10.5, but then you would have additional cost of inlets and pipes for that 3.5 foot width reduction. And then also it is harder to maintain, and you have more chance of the system not functioning properly, because those inlets and those pipes do get clogged up, which we've seen in other areas of the town.
So we could have similar effects First and Forest.
Correct.
And just confirm that not only if you use mathematical data and topography, that you've personally visualized it during rain events.
Yes, myself and Victor, who is on my team doing the design, we've personally been out there.
Okay, and are you confident this type of concept is the best solution? If the solution deviated, would the town have to sign an indemnification agreement, or would there be some sort of hold harmless statement that KHA would have to put forward? Again, remember, we're just talking about the stormwater engineering here.
Sure. This is our recommended approach. So yes, we are confident that based upon the data that we've gathered and the analysis that we've done, that this is the appropriate engineering solution. As far as if the town were to want to go with something less, like a smaller shoulder width or a smaller ditch and design for a smaller storm event, or something, or designing a narrower road, yes, we would have to ask for a written variation from the town, a variance, and that we would ask that the town indemnify us and hold us harmless for not following a standard criteria that most professionals do.
Okay, and then I'm just going to add comments. I am the liaison for the streets and roads, and also for LRP, who, by the way, for council's knowledge, if it wasn't, and I don't recall if it was in the packet or not, LRP did unanimously recommend this concept to council, the new concept that is. Yeah, I can tell you that working with staff and the contractors, they've worked tirelessly to come up with a amenable solution, to get to where we were today, where we were, a couple weeks ago. And I really see nothing they had to gain by designing something that does not fit the town's character. Their goal is to fix the flooding issue and subsequently, environmental issues that go with it. Did the first proposal come out overzealous? Yes. But this is why we go through the process of workshops and charrettes. By coming up with a concept, at least we have a starting point for the road and stormwater projects moving forward. It doesn't mean that this one will work on Oakdale or Magnolia or wherever, but it's a standard to say, here's where we start and where do we go to fix this section. It gives future admin or future council members a jumping point as opposed to going into every project blind, reinventing the wheel, and having this whole conversation again that residents do not want 20-foot roads and full use of the 60-foot right-of-way. I think we tend to get caught in the weeds treating these concepts as final designs. The final design, will hopefully be able to squeeze the areas within there as tight as possible. For example, you had said how that, hopefully at the beginning of it, we'll have, smaller footprints. And then obviously as we get down at the bottom where there's more water volume, unfortunately, they'll probably get a little bit bigger. So with that said, I'm not sure there's a reason to not take this concept to some sort of final design, especially knowing that there'd be tweaks made potentially in the positive direction. And maintenance keeps coming up too. And before I get into that, there was comment last night about swales being mucky and whatnot. I want to make sure that these swales are designed to dry. Is that correct, Hal?
Yes, that's correct. So they're designed with the proper slope, and we have side drains connecting all of underneath all the driveways. So we are conveying it as efficiently as practical down to the outfall, which is the retention area at Fernwood Park. In addition to that, we design it so some of that percolates into the existing ground. So they are designed to be dry.
Okay. And as mentioned last night, I agree there's current issues with maintenance. We had a long conversation about this at the last project meeting, and as the liaison, I'm going to work with staff to make sure that the recent projects and the stormwater areas are on a maintenance plan. As council, we may need to look at hiring somebody full-time to manage the roads and stormwater solely. Especially with our commitment with the dirt roads. But moving forward, we need to bring the roads back to par. And with a final design and construction, we'll have a maintenance plan and a schedule. From that point, we can truly hold Public Works accountable as we handed them a fresh slate. There's no question about how it was originally done to stay at that par level. I think this is part of the commitment from us with council to the residents in order to preserve the roads. But it's also our job as residents to maintain the rights of way too. We need to be good stewards of the infrastructure in the lakes. This is by no means tooting my horn, but you'll see black bags out in front of my house, my neighbor's house, almost on a weekly basis once we get into fall and winter as we bag leaves out of the right-of-ways and the edge of the road. Even educating lawn people not to blow their leaves into the roadways, because all this ends up into the systems. And furthermore, the code explicitly prohibits us as residents from encroaching onto town property. As I look around town, there's everything from DIY water diversions, even Arbor Day trees and makeshift fencing. Many of us are guilty of this. I'm guilty of planting in the right-of-ways. But as these landscapes get out of control, they constrict the roads. It honestly puts these problematic situations with the town to make improvements for the benefit of everybody. And we saw that as we did the sidewalk plan a couple of years ago. So I believe these concepts, again, are a good jumping off point for moving forward. But knowing that it will have to be tweaked in certain areas. So different roads, different projects, but again, just a starting point. As with the project in front of us, I see no reason to give up $780,000 in funds because it comes down to, when it comes down to brass tacks, we are talking about a couple feet here and there. We're all here to represent the whole town, and I cannot, for one, do nothing or support Band-Aids and risk losing funds because in the end, this project has to be done, and we have the money in front of us to do it now. How are we supposed to tell the rest of the town residents we are raising taxes for stormwater projects when the funds are there already? Or how can we tell people who are flooding that we need to wait and save up funds when we have the capabilities right now? So it's a tough decision for all of us. I think but one of us probably on the board here, live on a dirt road, so we don't take it lightly. As much as I appreciate, as much as anyone, I want to make sure that my neighbors are happy and I sympathize with them. But we have to be objective too. The last couple of councils to our present council have been fiscally responsible and subsequently have a healthy reserve and are on the move of doing amazing projects like the Ward Trail and getting water to every house and fire hydrants within reach of everybody. And I just honestly believe it would be irresponsible to turn down funds for a project that has minimum negative impact from at least what I've seen in comparison to the benefits that the whole town could reap. So I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Councilperson Stepp. That was those are good comments and well thought out as well. Council, any further conversation?
Bob, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Bill.
Chris, thanks for keeping it brief. I appreciate that. And just teasing. Great comments. I want to thank everybody, the staff and the engineers, for all the hard work that's gone into these projects and their efforts to accommodate everybody that's involved. There's really no way to do everything that everybody wants. I think this whole issue is about compromise. I also want to thank the residents for their input. I am all in favor of using grant money when possible to further our town's goals. I spent the last 2 years administering a $28 billion hurricane disaster recovery grant for FEMA. So as well as helping to write another $7 million grant for Hurricane Michael. So I know how incredibly difficult it is to obtain FEMA funding. We're very fortunate to receive this, and I too do not, my intention is not to send it back. However, I have some issues with the information that was presented to council to date. We also have issues with the lack of maintenance of our existing stormwater control system and the level of service to our residents, which is concerning to me. Council was only presented with one option as far as the minimal standards. And obviously this option has flexibility because we are able to meander and adjust and try to work around existing landscaping and rights of ways, which I understand belong to the town. But it's the other side of the coin, the charm and the character that we're trying to maintain as well. I mean, it was only revealed yesterday that there are clearly other options available, such as piping and inlets that Hal talked about a few minutes ago. But I was told that these are too expensive and that so they weren't presented to council. I believe council can judge that for ourselves. And so I think we should have been given all that available information before being asked to move forward on this. I think part of the reason we're in this situation is of our own making. I believe that the lack of maintenance of the existing stormwater systems that we've got has created, kind of backed us into a corner, forcing the town to make this, to make drastic changes to avoid possible legal action, which I feel could have been easily prevented by performing regular maintenance on the existing water retention systems. Obviously, if a new system was to be installed and not maintained, it's not worth a penny, much less $3 million. So we have got to have a commitment to maintain whatever we're doing, both existing and new systems. Obviously, whatever we put in, there's going to be rain events, hurricanes, etc., that overwhelm the system. It's just the way it is, and I think everybody understands that. But I don't think any of our residents should be having their homes and garages flooded by stormwater runoff. That's an unfair burden for them to bear. Conversely, we should not be shifting that burden across the street or up the hill to another few residents, because that's also not fair. So I think we need to look at including in the overall plan, plans to help residents who don't have stormwater swales, berms and swales on their properties to possibly retrofit those so that everyone in town is taking responsibility for their stormwater. Robert, you stated at the beginning of last night's meeting that the current systems in place are not being maintained as they should be, and Scott agreed. I would like an explanation as to why not, and do we currently have a maintenance plan for existing systems?
You're talking about for the town-wide?
Yes, town-wide.
Again, I think we've stated it before, with every roadway and every intersection, we've been consistently inconsistent with the way previously they've been graded, they've been maintained. Nothing's really been documented over the past relative to a lot of the projects that were done. Nothing came with a maintenance plan, whether it was done in-house, but the only thing I can say is that we've recognized the fact that, when it comes to a lot of the issues that we currently have, especially on Bayshore, when we had a washout with the sod, that's something that we should have been more proactive on catching, as opposed to the resident there calling us up and saying, hey, there's an issue. So we've identified that, yes, there is some gaps, and there's some areas where Public Works need to do a better job on maintaining our existing stormwater. But again, sometimes it's very difficult because, as you know, after a rainstorm, with the existing dirt roadways and the lack of adequate stormwater facilities on those roadways, they're scrambling to fix those roadways as fast as possible. So we're working on that. We'll hopefully get something back to you sooner than later. But yes, we've agreed that, we could do a lot better when it comes to stormwater maintenance on these roadways.
And do we currently have a maintenance plan for these systems, for the existing?
For the ones that, number one, there's no overall plan again for all the dirt roadways, because again, each one is different. It's just like a sand dune. Every time it rains, the topography of the roadway changes. So there is no plan for that. But we're going to be working with some additional experts to see how we can create a plan based on dragging dirt up, moving dirt in certain ways to make sure that it's directing the stormwater where it needs to flow. Because each person lives on a different roadway, has a different opinion on how that roadway should be maintained. As far as the new projects, that were recently done, probably within the last 5 or 6 years, those do have a maintenance plan. Those should be on a schedule, which I call it, again, the back door of a bathroom checkoff sheet, to where we should have a weekly, bi-weekly or monthly checkoff, to where we inspect each one of these areas to make sure that it's functioning and it's cleaned out. I know that they have started to go ahead and document and make sure that we're on a maintenance schedule as far as the the vacuuming and the sweeping and so on and so forth, because that directly relates to our NPDES compliance. But again, we understand that there's some gaps and there's some issues that we need to take care of, and we're going to hopefully shore those up sooner than later. And then I'll defer to Scott relative to any other comments he wants to make.
Yeah, and we don't disagree. My succession plan as I started is always trying to, build the team, start with vendor services. We reached out, we got tree services, we got debris services, we got great landscaping. We have a lot of vendors in place now, including our vac truck services. So starting at the bottom, working up, trying to get all that cleaned out. My goal this year was to create a contract similar to like what we have with Kimley Horn as a master service agreement, something that we have talent in-house, but on a maintenance level, like site plan development. The equipment that we need to reach out and clean some of these wells are enormous, and the prices just aren't justified for a town our size to go purchase, $1 million worth of equipment. Then where do you place it? It sits in the parking lot most of the year because you only need it a few times a year. So my goal this year, COVID kind of kicked in too, so it slowed a few things down, was to get a vendor on board that could come in and replace damaged culvert pipes, that could come in and maintain these drainage systems, like these retention ponds that we have, that has a piece of equipment that can reach out. I was speaking with a resident today actually about being on that selection committee. So we're also on the other side of the house too. I love electronic tracking. So I'm working with an asset management company that'll come in and image our whole town. It'll collect street signs. You got to remember, we have street signs, street lights, parks and rec, tennis courts, facilities that we maintain as well. And we're trying to do everything we can. And council's always been very good at helping us out with that. So you'll see in the next couple months that we'll come to you with a contract, hopefully for acceptance for kind of like a site development company that can come in and clean out ditches, that can come in and clean out retention ponds and resod it and so forth like that, for a much reduced cost per year than us going out and buying equipment, hiring more employees to run that equipment, and things sitting around. So yeah, you're absolutely right. We've identified it. Robert and I spoke with it. We've talked about it in our projects meeting. It's just getting time to get there, but we are getting there. And I assure you, here in the next couple of months, you'll see those pieces of the maintenance plan together. Like I've said, we've started with building that team, started with getting the important needs of the town together, building a comprehensive vendor list that we can respond in a moment's notice. And we've been very successful, and that's what we continue to do. So hopefully that answers your question.
All right, thank you, Scott. Robert, is there a deadline for utilizing these funds? And are each of these individual projects going to be put before council for design approval?
Design approval, yes. And yes, there are time constraints, but like pretty much for West 2nd Avenue, everything's within the contract where you have to have certain deliverables done by a certain time. West 2nd Avenue, and for this project, we're going to be asking for additional time because we are including potable water. Originally we were supposed to have the design completed and submitted to FEMA by December. And then we're hopefully looking at construction in summer of 2021. Hopefully they will give us that extension. If not, we'll just have to accelerate it as much as possible to get the water system included into these projects.
Okay, last question for Scott, right, if he's still here. No, maybe not. I'd like to know when the vendor list and maintenance schedule is going to be going to be ready. I guess he said in a couple of months, but in the meantime, we've got water retention areas that are filled in, gutters that are completely overfilled with sand, and stuff that needs to be addressed right away. So
we'll make sure that we're maintaining those ASAP. And then, as far as the vendor that he's speaking about, for a complete maintenance program, which includes the parks that we have, the dirt roads, the new projects, the town facilities, that's all due to me within a 6-month period.
Okay. Thank you. And lastly, I know I already said that, but lastly, I believe the portion of 7th Avenue from Main to Forest, I think it's unnecessary to rework that in order to achieve the drainage goals for the rest of 7th and Butler. I think we should think about leaving that alone, possibly increasing the size of the swale at the corner of 7th and Forest. But that's up to, I guess, the engineers, and then we'll review it when we see it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson Martini. Council, further comment? Councilperson McKinley.
I agree that we represent the residents of the town, and I think they have made it pretty clear through their vocalization, petitions, whatever, that they don't like change. Sometimes change is needed, sometimes it isn't. I do have a couple of questions. For your sewer and water, what is the depth that is put at?
Well, I mean, you have separation guidelines relative to sewer and water. You have to separate the two, but for water, the depth, I would have to defer to either Hal or John.
Okay.
Yeah, the depth of the utility guideline goes, the depth is a minimum 30 inches on a water line. Of course, if you run into some sort of obstacle or something, you're gonna have to dive under it. Sewer is based on gravity. So with the elevations that we have, it could go anywhere from a couple feet deep to 15 or 20 feet deep to get into a wet well or something that would have to pump it back up.
Okay.
And there are separations between sewer, reuse, and water. I think it's 5 feet. Hal probably knows that better than me.
Okay, so the 6 foot that we're looking at, that would accommodate both, or just potable water?
Just water is what I'm looking at.
Just water. So if we come back at a later date then with sewage, which was in the long range plan for the town, then we'd have to increase that 6 foot strip?
You would have
either, I'm sorry, Al.
You would have to find another location of it, perhaps on the other side of the road. But the 6 foot strip, we were looking at accommodating the water line only.
No. Okay, so we're not making plans for future for sewer then. Okay, can the swale be a part of the 6 foot? Could these utilities go beneath a part of the swale?
Orange County Utilities typically does not want their facilities underneath a swale. They want the shallow slopes for maintenance. So it would be something that we'd have to get approval from Orange County Utilities, but it's not typical that they would approve that.
Okay. And I agree with Councilman Martini on the maintenance. Maintenance has been an issue. We have one over on 10th Avenue where there was a flooding issue, where road water was going up to a residence. And after a period of time with several on-site inspections and stuff, I think someone took a shovel and reclaimed that area and piled the dirt up, and the problem was solved. I don't recall if we had an engineering study on that, did we?
I believe, is that a rhetorical question or is that an actual?
I'm just asking, did we have engineers go out and evaluate and draw a plan for that, or did we just clean out the retention area?
No, if you're just out there with a shovel, you're not going to have an engineering plan or as-built with that. But again, you have the danger of, what we just had on, again, West 2nd Avenue from previous lawsuits. If you do stuff haphazardly without an engineering stamp of approval, sometimes you open yourself up to liability.
Okay, I understand that, but what we had was a swale that had filled with dirt over time, and when we dug it out and put the dirt where it was supposed to be, that solved the problem. Looking at the overall thing, some of the water is shown in the film is coming off of private property onto Butler Avenue. So my question is, and I don't really want an answer to it, but it seems like that we are taking a chance on accepting funds to widen a road to help control residential stormwater. I find that hard to swallow. How you had mentioned the whole basin. Where's the bottom of that basin?
In this particular section, the intersection of Butler and 7.
That's the bottom?
Well, the lake, to Fernwood Park.
Okay, I thought you had said that Fernwood Park was the bottom of the basin.
Correct, Fernwood Park, you're correct. From
Okay,
within the roadway limit.
Yeah, Fernwood Park figured into this plan. So if we're going to look at the whole basin, we're looking at controlling stormwater, and that should include Fernwood Park in this entire setup so we can actively control it. We have a retention area in Fernwood Park that is not being maintained. There were berms at one point in time in Fernwood Park. They have disappeared, and I would like to see us sit back, take a look at this and figure out where the water is coming from, and considering the entire basin, how we're going to control it, and what we're going to do to stop it from going into the lakes. Because even if we do this project, it is not going to stop the water in Fernwood Park from going into the lake. There's nothing in the plan that I can find that would prevent that, because we haven't included Fernwood Park in the plan, even though that's the bottom of the basin. So I just have a problem with that. Also, if we set a standard and we accept this, I looked at plans today after digging through numerous sheets that Mike Galula had sent me. And we've got Bessie, or 9th and Bessie, that whole area there. We've got 3rd and Magnolia that we're going to be looking at. And those also include going all the way up to Main Street, down 3rd Avenue. I have a problem with us sitting here and saying that we're going to accept funds when we haven't tried everything within our power to do it. If we're talking about getting water into residents, we have 2 contract engineers and Kimley Horn, and it seems like we should be able to figure out how to keep that out without going in for a $700,000 grant to take away what is Windermere. And it's easy to sit behind a desk and look at a diagram and a book and say, this is the ideal situation. This is not an ideal situation. We have a bunch of residents that are adamant about keeping dirt roads. They don't want them wider. They don't want swales that are 14 foot across. So I think we need to take a step back, look at what we have, figure out where the water is coming from and how we're going to control it as a whole. And we move forward from there. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilperson McKinley. Point of clarification on the Fernwood Park question that Councilperson McKinley raised. How does that, I thought we were utilizing that basin drainage area there with, with some type of garden. Is that true or no?
That is correct. And if I may, we're actually, the slope of the road as is designed is going to be flowing away from Fernwood Park. So that will reduce some of the runoff that's going to Fernwood Park. The intent of the swale is to convey that water in the ditch and not along the road. So you're not having it run along the road and getting into Fernwood Park. It's going to be conveyed with the ditch on the northeast side. We're going to put a new pipe across to go into the retention area that's currently there. And then with that area, we are going to regrade that so that we get more volume out of it. We're also proposing that a rain garden could be installed in that area for additional water quality. So we are doing measures to reduce the amount of sediment going into the lake at Fernwood Park.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, you're reducing the amount of sediment that goes into the lake from Fernwood Park. The only way that sediment's going to get there with the plan that I see right now is that it overflows the retention area in Fernwood Park. What I'm saying is that I don't think most of this water is going into Fernwood Park anyway, other than maybe a little bit into that basin or retention area. The water that actually comes onto Fernwood Park goes in the lake, straight into it, nonstop. Some of it is absorbed into the ground, but if it goes down, it just goes right out. And we don't have that as an overall plan. And that's what I'm looking at. We need to plan for everything within that whole area, not just take and say, okay, we're going to put a 14-foot swale in all these people's front yards. And, you know, I question the swales too, because we have VACCON come out and pump sand out of the outfalls that we have already. And the sand is getting in there with the water. And we paint this pretty picture of a 14-foot swale that's all going to be grass. That sand's going to settle in the bottom of that thing eventually. Mm-hmm. And if we don't have a maintenance plan for that, we're just treading water. We're making something that right now we have a couple of problems with. We're making it very ugly. Now I'm done.
Thank you, Councilperson McKinley. Councilperson Williams.
I really don't have much to add. I mean, Councilman McKinley's covered a lot of my questions and comments. I think this is a sum of a lot of problems that we've kind of pushed down the road. So, Councilman Sapp's totally right. We've got to look further. I've looked at the history of other projects, and a lot of it has been short-sightedness on the town's part. And we end up with a lot of problems we don't like later on. I can't remember spending more time with admin, with residents, all on one project at one time ever, and still no middle ground has really ever gotten there. Maintenance is huge, and I'm still back to, we've got all these calculations are based, and how, correct me if I'm wrong, is based on everybody keeping their water in their yard, correct? Your water calculations.
Well, the issue with that is that not, when many of these houses, or the majority of these houses were built, that was not a requirement. That was not a requirement until 2007, I believe.
But that's not my question. His calculations for what our needs are based on what the road's actually going to take on, not other people not keeping the water on their property. That's my question.
Oh, yeah. I see. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, how can I answer that?
Yeah, sure, Victor.
This is Victor Gallo Kimhorn. Yeah, so what we did, two things. We looked at historical aerials. We looked at documents from previous studies and previous projects. We look at the LiDAR from the county, and then through field review, we fine-tune the basin areas. So if there was areas that they were having retention prior to discharging to the road system, we move our basin boundaries to avoid those. But for the most part, in this area, a lot of these parcels drain towards the road. on the north and east side of the project. So we are trying to, when we did the study, we're trying to look at what is actually going there now, and so that's what that was we designing for.
Because my concern is if the calculations are based on the rainfall and the width of the road and the slope as is, that's not taking into account of other water sources coming in. And are we building something that's not going to is not going to handle what we already have?
I think that what Victor, yeah, I think that what Victor is saying is that whether it's right or wrong, there are properties that drain into the road, especially on the northeast, and we have considered that as part of the amount of water coming in. What we have to do is we have to evaluate based upon the existing drainage pattern, and if somebody's flowing into the road, we can't ignore that, or else, like you said, we wouldn't have a solution that addresses the existing condition. So as engineers, we can't, it's a historical condition that we have to account for. Now, whether that should have occurred when the houses were built, we can't speak to that.
I understand that. I'm more concerned with, okay, if we do move forward with this and it gets finished and we still have more water than we can handle, than where we're at, whether that was ever taken into account for those homes that don't keep their water. And, part of code enforcement and everything else is we've got to come up with a plan to handle that stuff moving forward, because our houses are getting bigger and the lots aren't. So that's really all I've got to add.
Right, and Victor, you can confirm that based upon the houses that are constructed now and the topography now, we've accounted for flows from properties that go into the road. Is that correct, Victor?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, in the future, if somebody builds another house or remodels, then we don't know.
But they're required at that point to update their stormwater plan. I understand that. It's the ones that are existing that I've got the most concerns about. I mean, I was standing with Robert on Butler on Friday, and we had that quick hard rain. I mean, it didn't last but 10 minutes, but the video he shot was from 10 minutes worth of rain. And it just runs down the street, and you see where it's coming from.
Yeah, you can see from the picture that's on the screen right now of Butler Street, to the left of the green stripe.
Yep.
Are several houses that have. It doesn't show anything accommodating the runoff from that whole area.
It drops right off onto the street, straight out their driveways.
Coming down there. And so how are we going to address that? That's exacerbate, anything downstream.
Because all we've done is add a curbing to push the water down there, and the Millers and everybody at the corners is taking on their problems. So that's the next part.
Sure, if I may just provide a little bit of clarification. So if you, whoever's controlling the screen, could you kind of zoom in on those parcels where there's no swale? So those properties are higher, and because of that, it wasn't feasible to grade a swale because you would be making a lot of the back slope, and you would be talking about a section of ditch that's wider than 14 foot, which is undesirable. So in that area, because of the existing topography, we actually are proposing a shoulder gutter with inlets to catch that and to convey that into the ditch. So we are addressing that via piping, but because of the topography, we have to handle it that way, or else you're talking a much wider ditch in order to tie back to existing ground that's rising sharply as you go onto the property to the east.
Okay, so there is something going in there that's going to accommodate that.
Yes, sir.
Particular runoff. Is it possible to, I know I'm hogging somebody else's time here, but is it possible to mix and match? I mean, have swales, the 14-foot swale, and then have a piping with inlets to work around trees or, certain properties or locations? I know the piping is a little more, is more expensive, but, we got $3 million.
Exactly.
How can I answer that one?
Sure, for sure, Victor.
This is Victor again. So yes, we can mix and match, and that's what we are doing here. When it's not feasible, we go and we're looking at other options. However, what we're seeing at the bottom of these basins in this project and the others is that when we reach a certain critical flow or critical velocities, it's just a better method of treating the conveyance in an open system. In an open system that allows for water not to run down their road. And I think that you've seen it on the videos where, water running down the dirt road is just creating all kind of, erosion and scour issues. So therefore, in bottom-up basins, the appropriate method is just to, get water off the road as a conveyance and keep it in the open system as much as possible. And then try to minimize the piping, use cross-range, yes, but minimize the piping, because that's, if we could work on the first year until the severe rain event comes, the sediment transfer comes in, clogs the pipes, and now we have a solution that works for a year or two, and not, for the future. And this, the maintenance plans now, it gets a lot more complicated with things that you cannot see.
Okay.
Victor. And so I think, Robert, we need to look at those areas and talk to the homeowners about capturing their own water, because that's a ton of water going downstream to, into somebody's yard or garage or house, or, and also same with our own properties that we own, like the schoolhouse that has no water retention on it. The Fernwood Park, like Councilman McKinley said, the water collects there, goes right into the lake, without anything stopping it.
Yeah, currently, Brad was on the call, and we did task Wade Trim with any project that we have under review right now, with 3 projects that we are discussing tonight, just as a start, is to make sure that whoever is not adhering to the current land development codes, and we have the opportunity to make sure that they do adhere to those land development codes, then they would be put under code enforcement.
Now, is that only people that have done remodels, or is that houses in general?
It just depends on, what we are allowed to go after. He's taking a look at aerials. He's taking a look at original permits, so on and so forth, to make sure that they have not either filled in or they maybe have done improvements subsequent to the original permit that's created more issues. So those people would be put under code enforcement.
Okay.
Robert, I'm online here, and I can add to that, Mr. Martini, for you, as Robert said. So yeah, we are in the process of, initially what we are doing is we're pulling all permits that we've issued in the years that we've been working for the town within these basins, where we can go back. I have a permit, I have a plan that, these facilities are supposed to be in place, because they were in place at the time of CO when we do our final inspection. So that's what we're working on right now. Now I can tell you, like in this particular area we're talking about now here along Butler between 7th and 6th, we don't have any permits for any construction in there that would have triggered any requirement. Now what the town's code is, the code requires, if anybody's new construction or renovations, if they're increasing the net impervious on the site by 125 square feet or more, that then requires them to do the stormwater plan. So what happens in the town, if somebody just wants to say put in a little 20 by 20 patio in their backyard, they're actually having to do a full stormwater plan. So we do, a lot of people have to do this. So that's where we're focusing right now, is looking at those permits that we have, making sure those systems are still in place, still functioning as they're supposed to be. What we've begun in our second phase of our analysis is now we're going into those areas, looking at structures that have been built, as the mayor said, post 2007, trying to pull older permits, particularly from Orange County, to see what's in there. So we're focusing right now on where I've got documentation. I can go to a property owner and say, hey, the system's not there as it's permitted. Your code does have a provision that says once it's there, it's got to be maintained. You can't let it go away. So that's where we're focusing right now, is where I have that very strong documentation to support that code action if it's needed. And then we have the other part is as you're discussing here, then kind of try to identify what are those other properties that are having impact on the flow that haven't triggered in the past, any requirement to have to retain that, and come up with a plan on how the best way to address that. So we are in that process right now of doing that.
Thanks, Brad. And last question, I swear. Can we use any of this grant money to possibly retrofit a few houses that are really causing, adding considerably to the water runoff problem?
We would have to check with the grant administrator. But again, you're using grant money to improve private properties. And we would need to work with them.
Like berms and swale kind of stuff. I'm not talking, retaining walls or anything like that. I'm talking like, stuff that would mitigate the
mitigate on their properties.
On their properties, yeah.
We're in the right of way.
Yeah, be in the right of way.
Yeah, just mitigating it in the right of way where they don't have it. Can we use some of the funds there?
There's 100 houses I can think of that don't have anything. That would, it would help to have something.
Yeah.
Just, you don't have to answer that. I'm just thinking out loud. Okay, I'm done.
I think it's a slippery slope though when we start to carry private water on public right of way, because the right of way is there for other purposes. So that's, we have to be cautious here too. And those the HMGP dollars, which are the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program dollars, are designed for infrastructure and that sort of thing. So we'd have to really, again, be cautious there as well.
If I could make just one more point about the permitting, just so everybody is also aware, the standard of what the properties are required to retain when they do the stormwater plan, it is not the 25-year storm that Hal's designing his system on. It's the first inch of stormwater. That's what the code requires. So what we do see on systems that are permitted and functioning like they do, when we get these summer storms that come through with 2 inches of rain in 35 minutes, it's going to overwhelm these systems that are properly permitted, properly installed. So there is also the different standard that the town code has. The code doesn't say prevent all stormwater runoff. The code says the first inch of runoff has to be retained on site. So just want to make sure that is clear as well.
Thank you, Brad.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Martini, does that wrap up for your questions there? Okay, just want to make sure. Councilperson Andrew.
All right, thank you. Thanks to every single neighbor who has come forward. Thanks to all the engineers and town staff, especially all of the town staff that worked so hard to put together every presentation, video, communication infrastructure. I think that we did a really good job of making sure that everyone had an opportunity to be heard as much as possible. I feel like I've been waiting for God to talk to me on this one because I could use the help. This is
God's staying out of it, I can tell you.
I think so.
Too smarter.
I was praying here for a little while during this one. So I have some questions around quite a few things, and I tried to organize them as we went along here. Some have been answered along the way, so I'm gonna jumble things up, and I don't know how well this will go, but we'll just give it a shot. So I want to talk first about funding issues. So I've heard people say, let's walk away from these particular grant funds and look for another source. And people clearly don't want tax, they don't want assessments, they don't want to be levied, excess taxes. So what other sources of funding can we seek? Is there anything else out there? I'm assuming there probably aren't a whole lot of, it's not like scholarships for people who want to maintain dirt roads, right? So what else could we tap?
In the current economy and the current situation that we're in, I'm not sure. We've explored every grant opportunity that I think is out there. That is why a lot of people pretty much missed out on the local mitigation strategy funds, because it was contingent on a natural disaster occurring. So we had the foresight to say, let's go ahead and, throw the spaghetti against the wall to make sure that we have our hats in the ring wherever, there's money available. We've tried to access Amendment 1 money. We make sure that we look at any legislative updates or any funding updates. We're hoping that another CARES package is passed that includes infrastructure. And if that does get passed, we'll definitely seek out additional federal funds for various projects. But we, again, try to figure out how to supplement our taxes by getting those grants every opportunity that we can get.
It's important to note too, just for general knowledge, is that for the majority of grant programs out there, you need to have LMI, so that's lower moderate income, and our zip code does not meet that. So we're at a bit of a disadvantage there in terms of grant funding and pool monies. So we get kicked out in the beginning for a good proportion of the grants. These grants come because, like Robert said, we were impacted by Irma.
Yeah, and we do have a
Hey, Liz, this is Liz. John Fitzgibbon here too, because one thing that is important, because the grants that Robert and team have done in submission, we've built a relationship over the last 10 to 12 years with HMGP grants through Charlie, Francis, and previous hurricanes. And they've seen our projects, they've seen our shovel readiness, and they've seen the end game of what we actually do. And so we've actually built kind of a relationship. So when we do submit on these grants, we've kind of built that over the years. And even Bob McKinley, you were with us when we went through a lot of that as our roads and street guy, and now Chris is our roads and street guy. So I think it is important to understand that, over the years, in the last 12 years, we've kind of settled on things that we know we've built relationships with and grant funding. And so as you guys are making decisions tonight, I think it's also important that the relationship with what we're doing through LMS and through HMGP and all these other grants, these are things we've been working on for 10 to 12 years. So if all of a sudden we start to switch horses and start to not say, hey, we're going to meet your standards, we end up throwing a little wrench in it. So that may end that chain. And so I just throw that out for you guys as you're making your decisions tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's not just for the benefit of council. I hope that that's heard by the residents as well, because it's good for all of us to have an understanding of how these things get funded. We are a small town. We have a small budget. These funds don't come around that often. If it requires something like, in our case, a natural disaster or something like that to happen, we don't really want to pray for those kinds of things so that we can get funding. So I appreciate that. Thanks, John. Regarding other sources of money, we talked a little bit about what we can do to help residents maintain some stormwater on their own properties. And I would like to bring up the point once again that I think that we should pursue some possibility of receiving at least grant funds for an education program from EPD, which they have said that they might be able to provide regarding an education and outreach for our residents to understand how they can help lend a hand in maintaining some more stormwater on their own properties. So I think code enforcement, well, I think that's useful, and whatever we can do there to make sure that people are adhering to whatever permit requirements they have, I think that we should also try to really reinforce to our residents that they can help out too. And I have heard several say that, if it will help reduce whatever we need to do in these other systems or structures that might be taking away from their neighbors, that they would be willing to see what they can put on their property. So I'd like us to be a little more proactive there. It's just a comment. Let's see. And I think that we've also talked with, and Scott Brown brought up in a recent meeting, Scott, you can confirm, but that EPD at some point, David Hansen might have mentioned that there could be funds available to help us with berms and structures that we could put in place down at Fernwood Park to help mitigate the outfalls of sediment out into the lake.
You're absolutely correct. Dave did have that conversation. We talked with Parks and Rec about that and wanted to incorporate it in any plans that they may have. But we'll move forward with it. We don't want to build something and then build something over it and destroy it. So we want to make it all
We want to know where we're going first when we start this. Yeah, but I just think that we absolutely need to try to avail ourselves of anything we can do there. And then I think it would be good to help build our relationship with EPD as a co-protector, or at least somebody who is interested in maintaining the health of the lakes, because that is a shared goal. Lastly, I am interested regarding funding. I've got other subjects here, but so we have had residents speak to, do we really want to receive grant funds, because look where it has held us back or restricted us in other areas, such as when we've accepted grant funds for Lake Street Park, now it has to remain public. We didn't want to take funds to work on the boat ramp over at to work on Fernwood Park, because we'd have to open the boat ramp to the public. What sorts of restrictions or requirements might we have to adhere to in the future if we take grant funding for this roadway? And where one thing I'm getting at too is, if we do this plan, it doesn't work, we don't like it, and we want to, people have said we can't dial it back, but what if we tried? Are we no longer able to if we don't get it right the first time and we've accepted public funds?
You're saying that I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm muted or not.
That's yeah. So I'm saying, if we accept public funds, if we accept grant funds for this from what is this?
FEMA.
Yeah. Okay. The FEMA funds. If we accept those, then what happens if we decide that we in the future want to somehow narrow the roads again or something like that? We're not able to change the design. We're always going to have to adhere to the Green Book standards and all of that going forward.
I'd have to look at the contract again, but if you receive public dollars, then they're going to want to make sure that you adhere to the standards that you agreed to adhere to when you sign the contract.
I would think so.
Particular projects or for everything going forward?
No, I mean, I believe she's stating, or Councilmember Ander, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if we were in the future, let's say 5 years from now, change this plan to where it doesn't meet Green Book standards, what's our exposure as far as financially to FEMA?
Yes. Yes.
I can guarantee they probably wouldn't offer us another grant because of the fact that we've gone against the contract that we signed relative to this agreement. But I'll have to refer back to it, whether or not you'd have to go to FEMA for them to approve any future amendments or changes.
Okay, thank you. Again, this is all just for clarification so that we know what we're getting into and so that all the residents are informed as well as council. Okay.
Robert, I think, hey Liz, the other thing too that I think is important is that our Muni Code that is adopted by the town through ordinance does specifically talk about road widths at 18 feet, 9-foot lanes. And so a lot of the stuff that we're actually doing in our design align with our Muni Code and also align with the ordinances that the town have voted in the past with town council members. So it's important for everybody to understand as you're voting tonight that our Muni Code and what Howe is designing to adopts that Muni Code and adopts what we have already adopted in our town. So those are important things, and they also align with Green Book, and they also align with other things. So I think that's important as you guys are making decisions tonight.
Yeah, but understand too is we can deviate from that. We're protected through sovereign immunity to where we can deviate from our own standards and not expose us and not expose us to any future litigation. But you do expose yourself to litigation when it comes to inverse condemnation, trespass, and nuisance as a result of flooding.
Okay. Some of these things are going to take things, I hope, to kind of more of a, I don't know how to say plain English kind of level here, but I'm just trying to understand. So have the engineers viewed the videos that the Millers and Anime Klantz have provided to town council to see exactly what those past issues have been?
I know every video I receive, I forward.
Okay. So I'm wondering if they could speak a little bit to what they think caused those issues in the past, and maybe provide a little bit of assurance as to how this system would actually fix those things. So for instance, the Millers wouldn't end up with a huge pond of stuff on their property with this swale system if it's designed as we're looking at it right now. Can somebody from, how can you speak to that, please?
Sure, I'll speak to that and Victor can expand on it. You know, when you watch the videos, the water runs down the road and there's not swales out there besides that swale at the corner of Butler and 7th. So you're kind of at the mercy of the topography and the road as is based upon, you know, erosion and things like that. So the water will find its way to the low point via the road most of the time. And that's what we see a lot on the videos. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to pitch the road and design the swales to capture that water and be able to control the flow all the way down to Fernwood Park via swales and side drains. And so by capturing a majority of that water into the ditches and piping it to Fernwood Park, that's the plan to alleviate those issues that you see on the video.
And do we think that now with the way that these are designed, that there won't be a large standing water issue that happens often? There's going to be enough of an elevation or pitch or, you know, whatever the depth that it will convey the water fast enough so that, again, the Millers won't end up with a big pond in front of their residence?
Yes. So as you can see, the profile of Butler is on the bottom of your screen. And when you don't have swales, it's a bad thing because the velocity just picks up on the road when it runs down it. But with the profile of the swale will generally follow the profile of the road. And so you have a good slope on your swale that will convey that water. Having all the swales interconnected via pipe will allow for efficient conveyance to Fernwood Park. And then also having that ditch that's about 1.5 feet deep allows for sufficient storage up for a 25-year storm event and to convey that to Fernwood Park. And so we're designing it to be a dry ditch and not a wet ditch. And so in our opinion, it will be dry a majority of the time.
Even though it's fairly flat along that surface, because I mean, if you look, the rest of the street, but then that particular property is pretty flat across. So there's not a lot of elevation, you know, I mean, you can, I don't know how much you can work with over there. I'm just, you know, there's just been a lot of discussion about how is that actually, and they clearly you've seen the video, so there's concern over what's happened in the past. So how do you, you know, is it good for maybe portions, and people have already raised this tonight about, you know, having piping or, you know, other ways that you can divert water or, you know, have some, I don't know, you know, some sort of way that water can be conveyed quicker into the ground along sections like that don't have much of an elevation as it goes along Butler Street down to Fernwood.
How can I jump in?
Sure. Yeah, Victor, you can jump in.
Yeah, just one thing is that we've been out there before a rain event. We've been out there during a rain event and shortly after. Looked at the videos and have been very helpful to identify drainage patterns. The one thing I would see, for example, on the screen that we're sharing right now, is that you know, water is going from left to right to left to right as it scours along the road, and so when we have these. And if we were to have these, for example, in the upstream of the basin, the amount of water would not be as significant, and therefore we may be able to have more options. When we get into the bottom of the basin and we have significant amount of water that comes from you know, open systems and closed systems, and then we have to be able to provide an adequate conveyance system, and the best option here is that we have the you know, the right of way available to have an open system to be able to handle that. And move water, basically, that water that's going 4 feet per second, 5 feet per second, now going into an armored line ditch instead of the dirt road that is continue creating these issues. So
Hey, Hal,
yep.
yes, Victor and Hal, can you also explain to Liz, because I think the issue is, people don't want moats of water in front of their yard, in addition to the fact that we also have a great treatment train that you guys are developing to treat the water before it even gets to our lakes. Our soils are beautifully indicative to allow percolation so that we're not retaining and holding water. And so I just throw that out there for you guys.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we had options for rain gardens, and we looked at the system we're proposing with dry ditches, but the treatment train that John mentioned is that when you let water go through an area where there's good infiltration, there's a potential for removal of nutrients if we let it go in there way before the outfall and the point of concern downstream. So the ditches by themselves, the swells by themselves, will be able to provide some treatment. And then we have in Fernwood Park the ability to also do more with the pond itself. So we have options, and we will look through the design as far as treatment goes to be able to eliminate any sediment transport into the lake, meet our and water quality requirements as well.
Yeah, and I think what we're talking about is, do we send the water that's coming off of our streets through a coffee filter, meaning everything's filtered through a swale? By the time it gets to the lake, it's coming through the sand and the aquifer? Or do we take the coffee filter out and just send it straight into the pot? And that's really what we're talking about here in layman's terms. What we want to do is make sure that we're treating the milky water coming off of our roads into the swales, allowing the sand to filter it and allow that to get into the lakes, or at least settle it in the Fernwood Pond before it gets to the lakes. And that's really what we always look at as engineers, is how do we filter the water? And so that's the only analogy I can think of that's kind of layman's terms. You either pour your coffee with the filter or you just do it straight.
So I appreciate that, and I would like to see a lot more vegetation. In fact, I'd like to have that rain garden built up so that it's attractive, so that it's actually a point of pride for the town to have that with native vegetation. And always, if we can put more trees into anything, please do that. I think that I also had a question regarding, so we've had a lot of concerns raised around character and also traffic concerns and things of that nature. And I know that there have been some, the plans have changed a bit to accommodate keeping the tree canopy where it is. And I appreciate that, making the it's not going to be really severe curves, but at least there'll be some curvature to the road so that can hopefully serve as a traffic management device. I'm wondering, are there opportunities that we're missing that might add a little bit of expense to the project, but can actually improve the character of the town? I mean, these streets are, I'm on them all the time too, like many of the neighbors that live there. They're not my primary view of the town, but they do provide me calm every day as I run down them and have my meditative moments too. And I wonder, could we do something that I don't even know of? Like, in Gotha, they have those islands. Now that might be really difficult to put in on a dirt road, but are there any sort of sightline features or things like that we can put in that will actually help with traffic management and be an addition to the character versus, we've spent a lot of time talking about how we're going to detract from the character if we make these roads too wide or make, there be too much of a flat spot with grass or what's perceived as to be this wide area of grass that doesn't have anything else in it. Can anyone speak to that? Am I being too hopeful?
No,
I mean,
I can speak a little bit to that. One of the things that's been a benefit of this plan is kind of like an outcropping of trying to figure out how do we look at, Stroop's property so we're not affecting Tom and Dawn, and yet being responsible to the swale widths and everything else to maintain the character and the charm in front of their house. One of the things that's ultimately come out of that is we don't have straight shots anymore. And that's like an old 1921s, orthogonal design. And so we got little twists and turns in the roads, and those really help from a standpoint of making sure that speed's reduced and everything else, because people aren't just looking straight down a road anymore. And so those are the kind of things that we could look at. It's kind of a mini Gotha version, as opposed to, we're confined to dirt roads. You guys put that edict out and love it. And, that's what we should do as a town, is all agree that this is our character and our charm. And so, we're just trying to design it. And if you go up, you can look at 7th Avenue, where we now have some twisty bends and turns. Those are kind of like, extenuations of chicanes that kind of do that same thing. And so that could help. And I think it will help.
Sure, and if you go to the next slide of 7th Avenue, I mean, some of those jobs that we're doing to preserve the trees are significant, and they will serve as traffic calming. But unfortunately, with dirt roads and physical items like curbing and islands and things like vertical curves, it's just not feasible for dirt roads. Those are more for paved road applications. So there aren't many physical items that you could put up that would help with that traffic calming. But I think that the jobs that we're making to preserve the trees kind of also help traffic calming as well.
So what about, okay, so you've got your swales that have to have their purpose. No. So I'm wondering, like at the beginning of the road up on Main Street, right now you've got the fence post that lines over by the 1887 schoolhouse property. Could you just every once in a while put like something like that, some sort of visual barrier that, wouldn't be too intrusive for maintaining those sections of swales that would still, I don't know what I'm asking for here, except for maybe the impossible, but would like to see something that would be a visual obstruction or deterrent to people feeling like that's a way to race down there. But it would also, for the residents that live there, be something that would make this not be such a, it seemed like such a, I don't know, something that just they feel is going to be so different to what they're wanting to preserve. Can you put anything like that? Like, I don't know.
I would probably discourage that, because since you don't have a curb and gutter section, you don't have a physical barrier for the travelway. So you have what's an open section, a rural section. And so by putting a fence or something within the shoulder or the swell, it's really introducing a roadside hazard, as well as it would cause issues with maintenance as well. But I mean, I'd be happy to brainstorm my ideas. I just can't think of one right now off the top.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I always try to kind of grasp and figure out how can we make an opportunity out of something that seems a challenge. And,
yep.
And I think we have explored just about every angle. Let me see if there's anything else I had in here. I think I'll give everyone a break. I'm done.
Councilmember Randa, real quick, I really liked your idea of education, and I actually texted Robert. What we can do very simply is, and I found a really nice one-sheeter from Orange County EPD about the importance of maintaining your stormwater and the health of the lakes. I can include that in all our correspondence with permitting. Even if it's somebody just pulling a fence permit that doesn't trigger it, we can make that just part of our regular comment, just as an attachment. Even when we get email requests for information, I can include that as part of our email responses as well, just to get the word out and get that information out. And that's something very easily we could start doing tomorrow. If that's something the council would like us to do, we can absolutely do that.
I'm for it. Absolutely.
Okay. We will start doing that tomorrow.
Thanks, Brett. Unless anyone's opposed, we can rethink that. But I think, if anyone can help do their part to help us manage stormwater, we have a unique situation and challenges here in town. So anything that people can do to be part of a team, it's a good thing.
Fantastic.
All right.
Thank you, Councilperson Andrew. And Sherry, I mean, Brad, that's a great idea. And I like that. Councilperson McKinley.
Yeah, as we wrap this thing up, hopefully, I would like to say that even though I am kind of hard on the town manager and public works and engineering at times, I appreciate the effort they all put forth. I will say that especially the town manager has put forth one heck of a lot of effort over the last couple of weeks trying to put out forest fires. If he keeps this up, the state of California may even try to hire him away from us. But he's gotten good at it, and he devotes a lot of time. And I'd like to thank the mayor and my fellow council members, all the town staff, for going out and meeting with the residents and spending so much time in it. I know that we've almost ended up with a full-time job here in a volunteer position over the last couple of weeks. But I do thank the staff and the engineering and appreciate all their efforts in trying to solve a problem that may be unsolvable, but at the same time, we have to listen to the residents of the town as to what they want and see what we can do to meet that. But especially to Mr. Smith, thank you. I really appreciate all the work and effort you put in with all the Zoom meetings and everything else going on. Hopefully we can get back to something a little calmer at some point in time in the future. But for me, thank you.
I appreciate it. You should be thanking my wife more than anybody, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson McKinley. And, you know, and here's the thing that we guys need to do as a council for staff. We have to give them direction on how to proceed here, because that's what we owe them. We can't allow them to continue to have to put out as many forest fires. So, you know, this comes down to 5 votes here. I think I want to take 2 seconds with this though, and I want to break it up a little bit because I want to make sure that we all understand a path forward, or maybe a couple of paths forward, and we'll look for a little direction. My feeling that you know, what I'm hearing from council essentially is that because we spent most of our time discussing 7th and Butler, that is clearly a hot button item that we all are aware of. It sounds like council is not confident in the mechanism for moving that water or the way forward there in terms of the grant funding. I'd like to just get a little idea. Am I reading that right and correct?
Correct.
It's incorrect on my part.
Chris, I agree. I see you there. So you are an affirmative there. Councilperson Williams?
No, I'm not confident.
Martini?
Mayor, can you repeat the question? I want to make sure.
Yeah, sure. What I'm looking for is an idea of the comfort level for the 7th and Butler project, because that is where most of the discussion carried this evening. And I want to do that for a couple of reasons, because first of all, we've got more than one project here that we're talking about. So we're looking at a typical dirt road solution, for lack of a better term. And then we have the 2nd Avenue project. All right, the 2nd Avenue project is huge. We cannot give that grant money back and lose that opportunity, or that 2nd Avenue repave and drainage situation is going to get kicked down the road 2, 3, 4 years. Is that accurate, Robert? I mean, we do not have $1.2 million to do that road.
No, we probably have to wait another 2 years in order to complete that roadway. And okay, as I said before, other roadways are getting worse while we save up for that roadway.
I'm not taking into consideration 2nd Avenue at all on this meeting. I'm only considering the other 3 projects. I'm very hesitant to give carte blanche to anyone to to make these decisions without design approval from council. And I would also like to see, at the same time, a maintenance plan and schedule at the same time the design portion is presented to council. And I would like to make sure that our engineers and staff explore every single option to minimize the road width and the swale width, and to put in piping and inlets and whatever else, because we're going to have, from what I hear, we're going to have a top-notch maintenance schedule. And so the possibility of that failing due to lack of maintenance is a non-issue for me. It needs to be maintained. Otherwise, let's not do it. So unless, if we have a commitment, a full, standing commitment from Public Works and staff that this stuff is going to get maintained, then let's go with it. If not, let's not, because we're going to be right back where we started.
Well, ultimately, does not council not approve the final design?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we do, and that's what I want to be sure of. Yeah.
And if we want, and if we would like a maintenance plan attached to that, then we just have to direct staff that that is the direction that we desire to go. Okay. But what we're looking for here tonight, and the reason why I bring this up, is because we do need to give, this is our opportunity to give staff direction on what we want to do, not only with 7th and Butler, but with our other, stand by one second, I'll get you the other projects.
Well, the Bessie and the Bessie Basin project, we haven't signed that contract yet, and we haven't even, I don't think, given an IPO. Well, we have given an IPO to Kimley Horn Associates, but we're going to base it pretty much off of this. Understand that this is a concept for this roadway. Again, the next step would be to get into design, and if we can, design dollars are part of the grant. That's $80,000. That's going to be money that can go towards the design of this project. And we can incorporate like adults to where you can show what the design would be for just an open swale system, and then what the design would be for the piping system. And we can give you those cost differences relative to not only construction, but perpetual maintenance. But right now we're here just from a conceptual standpoint. If you're completely against, the concept of what we're proposing tonight, then I'd rather give the money back. When we get to Bessie, we're going to be coming up with concepts. They may be similar to this because, we understand you don't want swales on either side of the roadway. So that's why we came up with one side and having the 2% pitch. So that's the direction the staff needs is, okay, if you're completely against this concept that meets the minimum standards, but if your only issue is the swale system, then we can go back when we get into design and try to reconfigure it, but also give you the alternatives of, just so everybody's aware, the 14 feet is going to be less expensive, to construct and to maintain. And then we can give you the cost of what it would be for the piping, and then also the maintenance of that too.
So we can have a couple of concepts presented and have to each of those concepts attached a plan for maintenance. And that's what we can give direction on for this evening, to say, please go forward and bring us back a couple of concepts to look at and make sure that there's a maintenance plan attached to each of them.
It would be a design, but the design would be, would have a maintenance program attached to that. And those, for the maintenance of a typical swale section of 14 feet, or if you do 10.5 feet with a pipe in it, I think there's some standard maintenance programs that are already out there that Hal can actually present to us to utilize.
Okay, so I used incorrect terminology. I meant so we could have a couple of designs and then maintenance plans attached to those.
Yeah, I mean, the only two, again, and the reason that we proposed the 14 foot was, again, the issue that we had on First and Forest.
Right.
And, so that's why we didn't propose a piping system, because that was just such a negative project in a lot of the minds of the council. That's why we didn't propose that one to town council, because it poses the same perpetual maintenance nightmares. But we'll be more than happy to do that as part of the design aspect. But understanding with this concept here, it's showing maximums, not minimums. So it'll show the maximum as far as what the swale system would be, understanding that the minimums of the 6, 18, and 3 will remain.
And also, just a follow-up question on that, if we accept the funding for the design, then we're obligated to the project, correct?
Yes, or we would have to pay back the money if we don't move forward.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So there's $70,000, $80,000 that could come out of our pockets if we decide not to move
For design, right?
For design.
But either way, we've got to do this project and come up with a design. We can't sit on our hands.
I agree with that. So, I mean, so this is where we are then. So if you're going to, you know, then council's option is to ask for a new design and accept the funds with a maintenance plan. And you're going to go, and basically your direction one way or another, whether you say it or not, is that you're looking towards a much more complex maintenance intensive system to move the water.
Not necessarily, but we would like to have options. Part of the problem that I have with this whole exercise is that we were not given options until yesterday or today. We've gone through a lot of meetings and talking to residents who saw this and said, this is what you get. This is all there is to it. But apparently there are other options. So I would like to be able to see those and to see what they cost. You know, I don't, I took offense to the fact that it was predetermined that the piping and inlet option was considered too expensive. You know, I didn't even know it was an option. So.
I'm sorry to take offense to that, but again, you know, with the fact that we had to readdress first and foremost based on the exact same system that we're talking about, we determined that that would not be an appropriate fix to this based on that issue. And then when you get into the, if you want to do a ditch system, then you're talking about 19 feet as opposed to the maximum of 14 feet. So again, that's why that option wasn't proposed to you as well.
I'm not saying pipe the whole street, Robert, or the whole project. I'm talking about maybe possibly doing sections of it as needed or as desired to make it more appealing to the residents and the topography, et cetera. So I would like to see those options.
Give us a motion, sir.
I make a motion. Sorry, Chris, go ahead. You go.
Hopefully I can get this right of understanding everybody. I would like to make a motion to move forward with this, use this concept as a springboard to come up with 2 design options for town council to approve. Attached to that would be maintenance plans for each of those options. At the same time, to apply for the grant funds and sign a contract for the grant funds, rather. Does that make sense?
I believe so. So you're making a motion that we want to request 2 additional designs for 7th and Butler with a maintenance plan and to move forward in accepting the grant funds.
Correct.
I'm going to have to insist that one of those options be that that we don't alter the schoolhouse property as an option, if that's possible.
All right, hang on. We can't. Chris Sapp's the motion maker. So, Chris.
I'm sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
And I think that has to be a separate item. I'm not so sure we can work all that out in one motion.
Right.
All right. So, First of all, there's a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay, second by Councilperson Martini. All right, now let's get to the schoolhouse piece here, because, all right, so now you're saying, so Councilperson Martini, you don't want to have any, because I guess I have to say I'm a little confused, because we talked about the town being responsible for their own runoff and maintenance of their own areas, but we don't want to do any of that on the schoolhouse property?
If it's possible to keep that, I mean, just driving down that street from Main Street, I don't think it's necessary to do that. I mean, maybe they can just look at it and let us know if it's absolutely necessary. I don't think it is, but okay. I'm not an engineer, so.
So is it safe to say that as we do the topography and the hydrology there, that we would know where the water flows and sheets, and we can make that determination when we look at design?
Sure, that's fair enough.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question as an engineer? Bill, what's your concerns with the impact to the schoolhouse, because it is set back beyond it, and we have a handicap ramp that doesn't meet code?
Not the schoolhouse itself, John, but the overall look of that general area. I think we're talking about a dramatic impact to the charm and character of that street. And if we don't have to absolutely do it from Main to Forest, then let's not do it. There's a, as Hal said, there's a relatively small amount of water that comes down that stretch, and I don't want to do it just to spend the money. I would rather preserve that section if possible. And I have I'm not playing favorites, with anybody or the schoolhouse or anything like that. But if we don't have to do it because that's not absolutely necessary, not only there, but wherever in town we're considering this, then let's not do it. If it's absolutely necessary to capture, that water in this fashion, fine. If it's not, and we could work something else out, then I think we should try to maintain as much of the existing type of, charm and character as possible.
Yeah, and I get that, and that is important, and we'll just task Hal for that, but also understanding that he has to look at the entire water basin to try and reduce the amount of water coming down 7th Avenue. And if he has to do that within his hydraulic calculations, I think we, as the town and as engineers representing you guys as council, we have to at least allow them to have the opportunity to build that into the calculations, to be able to take into consideration what's happening downstream with Mr. Stroop and all the other people to reduce the amount of water flow coming in. So I think we should at least leave that open to him to figure out the tailwater upstream, to be able to reduce the amount of design impact to all the residents.
John, let me just simplify this. We're going to have to come back with an IPO for them to do the design. That scope of that IPO can be approved by town council, which can include everything that we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think by the end of these meetings, and I'm not going to speak for you, John or Hal, but you realize that the residents' council, does not want a sterile look. So I believe, and I hope I'm right, that you're going to fit this, do something in your plans to pollute
everything we do, yes, to make sure that we are not changing the charm of our town and not affecting our residents. That if we put that as our #1 goal as we design something, then we've answered the call to the town, and we've done it for 12 years. We've put stormwater projects all over this town, and we just have to make sure that we're protecting our lakes and designing stuff that's appropriate for our residents where they're not impacted.
And you've done a great job, John. Thank you. I appreciate all your hard work over the years.
So at one point of clarification here. So if we're going to do so if we're going to issue an RFQ or an RFP for this particular scope Are we scoping just 7th and Butler now? Are we giving staff direction to scope the 3 projects, or are we just sticking with 7th and Butler?
We're just doing, right now, the only contract we have is with West 2nd Avenue and 7th and Butler with FEMA. We're still waiting on the contract from Doug Galvin for the Bessie project.
Okay.
Hopefully I get that sooner than later. But again, you don't want to approve the IPO for the design until you sign that contract. So
right.
That's why we're holding off on that, but we still have that conceptual thing that's similar to this exercise, but I can guarantee you for that exercise will be more, it won't be utilizing the entire 60 feet, but you will be approving the IPO for the design, which can include, you know, you would like to see 2 versions and then feel it out as far as other stuff. And Hal's on here, so he knows what he can include in that scope to make sure that everybody's happy with the way it's written, and then it can be manipulated at the next council meeting for
right.
Discussion.
Okay, so this will give us what we need to proceed from here. Any further discussion, council?
Yes, the part of the motion that says that we're going to move forward and sign the contract. When we sign that contract for the design, we're obligated, or we're going to have to pay that money back.
But even if we scratch that, we're still going to be paying the money. Why not look and see?
Why would we be paying the money?
Are we going to sit on our hands, or are we going to pay for a design?
I can promise you that eventually at some point we'll pay for design, whether it's today or whether it's a year down the road or 2 years down the road.
Mm-hmm. So we're designing and we don't even have all the particulars on where the water is coming from, and we haven't included Fernwood Park in it.
You would design.
We're designing roads and storm system that is going into Fernwood Park, and we're not including Fernwood Park as part of that design. That doesn't make sense to me. But the motion's on there, and
I mean, our first presentation, Fernwood, was definitely included because
yes.
We just didn't get to it because of time. But there was a whole presentation, you know, in regards to this rain garden and such. You know, so I don't think anybody said that Fernwood is not included with this.
I don't see a design for it.
I think we're just getting caught in the weeds of trying to design now. I mean, we've got to we got to give the town something to work with to you know, so we can come to the table with the design.
Agreed. So what we're going to do, so with this motion, basically what we're doing is we're asking for a design that is that gives us more breadth and more leeway and looks at a couple different ways that we had not looked at previous. And we'll go forward with that if council agrees. So
and sign the contract. That's part of it.
You would sign the contract. Otherwise, you're going to go ahead, Robert.
When
the FEMA contract signed.
Yep.
The FEMA contract is already signed.
Absolutely, the grant is signed.
But not the design part. Not
so our
option. Not the design. So that's why we're like, you know, okay, if you don't want to move forward with the grant, then I'd give the money back right now.
Which is essentially what you do if you vote down this motion. That's essentially what you're doing. So I believe that council has the option in front of it to proceed either way.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? Begin voting with Councilperson Ander.
Aye.
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 No.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries 4-1. And we will continue on the trek to get someplace that will hopefully work for everybody's needs, and we'll just keep plugging away at it. Robert, do we have right? Robert, do we have everything? Do we need to make motion for 2nd Avenue, or do you have what you need there?
No, we're fine with 2nd Avenue. The design was the design IPO was for Mike Galora. If we don't, as you guys may recall, with Kinley and Horn Associates doing a peer review on that project.
Okay, that's right. Yep. All right. Just want to make sure we're good.
So we'll bring back an IPO for the design of Butler and 7th with everything that we discussed tonight. And then once that's approved, then we'll come back with the designs, with the alternatives, and the maintenance schedules that go along with those.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Council. We'll move to mayoral and liaison reports. I'll begin with Councilperson McKinley.
We have had some meetings with concerning Fernwood Park with the boardwalk area, and we've had a couple of charrettes, numerous meetings, including on site with nearby residents that were interested. So Parks and Rec will be moving forward in November with a decision on that that project. Of course, we're going to have to coordinate part of it with Scott Brown dealing with the berms in Fernwood Park and what we want to do there. We also have later this month, the elders. We are going to be doing a delivery of food to each of the elders. And we have had a big sign up, more than we've ever had for the normal meeting at Town Hall that we had. So it's going to be a great project.
Very
and
cool.
Then we have the Halloween project that's coming up, and I think you, Mr. Mayor, are going to be involved in that.
I will, sir.
So we hope to pass out some goodies for all the kiddies.
Hopefully I'll just get to toss out and nobody will toss back. We'll see how that goes.
And the Police Department Foundation will be assisting that as well. So we're going to be passing out glow sticks for the kids to make sure that they're safe if they happen to go trick-or-treating.
We're also going to put out some guidance on some suggestions on ways that people can trick-or-treat in a way that is as safe as possible these days with COVID, and also some ways that those individuals who may not be able to have people come and visit their front door can let folks know, in an easy way, so people won't go up and try to trick or treat there, because there's some of those folks on Second that have to be a little extra careful. So we want to make sure that we are respectful to that. It's a weekend this year too, so I suspect it'll be big.
Is it possible to shut down vehicle traffic on Second Avenue, like from the park to the end?
We normally do.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yep.
Good.
I see Scott was at a thumbs up, and Chief can chime in on that, or DC will chime in on that.
Yeah, PD, we provide them some signs, and PD monitors that, and Chief can pipe in on that.
Okay, good.
Great. Councilperson Williams.
Thank you. HPV did finally meet last week after 8 months. They actually met in person. Had a really good meeting. And unfortunately was not there, so I had to call into it and listen, and we had a good conversation. We did have one new member application voted on, and that'll be up on next council's for the appointment. What was heatedly discussed was the boathouses. They did pass a motion wanting us to look into getting those, if possible, a historic designation locally, maybe nationally, but that's probably a pretty big stretch. As we start looking forward with the leases, we're getting a pretty good outpouring of people that want to keep them. They like the charm. It's part of the town. But now it's how do we navigate that forward? And they understand it's a fluid situation. We really need to figure out ownership, leases, and all that kind of stuff too. A couple new ideas on fundraisers, but mainly we just focused on the boathouses, and that's it.
Thank you, sir. Councilperson Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor. Bob, wanted to let you know that if you hadn't heard I got in touch with Amy Diedrich over at Windermere Elementary, and the 5th graders are going to be providing pen pal letters for the elders to go along with their lunch.
Nice.
Yeah, so I provided her, so they're going to do a writing centers activity on it. I provided her some prompt questions, things like, things like what are your hobbies, and maybe they can ask the elders some questions too, and I'll try to facilitate any replies if the elders want to write back to the kids who send them letters. And I guess that would mean Kalina might be involved in that too, right? The 5th grader right now?
Yeah, she is.
Yep. So great. That'll be fun. And I said that, I told Amy that I really wanted to make sure these were uplifting, and that the kids talked about maybe their hopes and maybe some things that they were, pleased with this year, even though the challenging circumstances, so that it's kind of uplifting and light for our seniors to be able to enjoy some exchange with some kids. So
that'll be great. They the 5th grader or the 4th graders, when Kalina last year was a 4th grader, the school had a project like that where they would go out and talk to some of the elders and ask them questions. Of course, this was pre-COVID, and she talked to the ones across the street, and where were they, what did they do as kids, where were they born, and all this. So it was really good, and a good exchange, and each of the kids went back to school and made a report on it. So it's good that they're working with the elders. There's a lot of knowledge there, and the elders appreciate it too.
Yeah, I hope that that's a good exchange. So we'll see how that one goes. But anyways, it's all in good faith. So the tree board directed Scott to request a resume from Kimberly Horn regarding their abilities and experience in providing landscaping architecture as it pertains to a parks landscaping CIP, which had been previously discussed several times. And so they're moving forward on it. It's a good thing. And then also I see that Robert did advertise as directed an RFQ for the farmer's market manager. Robert, have we had any responses?
The responses are not due until I believe the 23rd.
Okay, if anyone,
or actually the 30th.
If anyone knows of a potential farmer's market manager, let them know. Let's see, Way Committee. So as we all talked about earlier tonight, they recently had the changeover as the departing seniors left. They last time had all of their new officers installed, and this past meeting they had social media directors assigned, so hopefully they'll get more of a social media presence and activity going. The members have started talking about some events they'd like to organize and host. Still, of course, we know that there are precautions and safety measures that need to be taken, so they are considering what they might be able to do within those constraints. I would, as I mentioned, like to get thank you cards signed from town council, mayor, and Robert for all of our departing and previous Ways members. And then Butler Chain of Lakes Advisory Board. So we've heard comments, or I've heard comments, I'm sure some of you have too, about the water levels being pretty high. They did address that in the last meeting. They did have, there's an engineer that EPD works with that went out to check the outfall from Fish Lake to Reedy Creek to make sure there weren't any obstructions, to make sure the water's flowing out of the lakes okay, and that's not contributing. So far, they cannot see that. So really the lake levels are due to just the rain levels that we've been receiving. The county cannot create a lake-wide no-wake zone at this point, but they can provide some guidance. They haven't taken that path yet, as they haven't found that to be necessary. I think everyone remembers after Irma, it wasn't actually prohibited to create a wake on the lakes, but there was strong guidance given. I think there was, I don't think it was an order, a county order. I think it was just guidance. So that could be pursued, but at this point it hasn't been deemed necessary. But I did talk with David Hansen. He told me that he would talk with Butler Marine Patrol and FWC to make sure that when they have outreach with any boaters or watercraft operators on the lakes, that they would advise them to be courteous of the homeowners and stay safe distances and not create excessive wakes. So hoping for that. I also talked with Chief about that to make sure that when we have our shoreline patrol out there, that they do similar outreach activities and education efforts. So hopefully, if your neighbors are experiencing issues, those will be reduced by those efforts. And if not, then please let them know to contact EPD or contact me, and I'll make sure that they're heard and their concerns are looked into. Next Monday at 4 p.m., the advisory board will hold their next meeting via WebEx. They are still meeting virtually. If you would like to attend, you can contact me or David Hansen for information on that. And then also, lastly, our observation form, as written in the Gazette article that just came out, is live on the town website. The observation form is for safety issues that people see on the lakes. They can submit that through the website along with any photograph or video evidence of unsafe activities out there so that we can collect all of that in a repository. We intend to put up some more information on the website so that our residents can find out information around other lake history resources, water study reports, information on when the advisory board meets, and how they can receive more information about the lakes and activities that pertain to the lakes. That's it.
Thank you, Councilperson Andrew. Councilperson Martini.
I've got nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilperson Williams. Nope, we already did. Councilperson Sapp.
Long-range planning met. Most of the discussion was in regards to the concept plan that we went over. I already mentioned what the ultimate recommendation was. They also made a recommendation for a third party to handle our sign design as we move forward on individual IPOs. So, for example, anything for the Ward Trail or the town facilities, et cetera. So I expect that to be on our packet for November. Just thought we had a little bit much on our plate to put it on this month's agenda. Projects, meeting notes were, I believe, in the agenda package, so you'll be able to get the updates from that meeting. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Councilperson Sapp. So for next meeting, it'll be signs, boathouses, and drainage. That'll be fun. We'll have a good time.
It doesn't sound like it.
I'm going to post that picture of you laying on the ground after your run.
Mayor, I did have one. I need to backtrack. There, the DRB meeting that's coming up. We're not having one in October, but in November, there are plans submitted to redo the corner of 6th and Main Street. I believe it's the Susie Carr building, that particular area. That's going to be submitted to DRB for review. So if I'll get some more information on that, and that might be another DRB meeting for everyone to tune into because it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's for the redevelopment of the half of the 500 block that Jim Carr owns. The initial development plans have been submitted to DRB. They had 10 days in which to provide comments back to the developer. They've done that. Next step would be to take it to DRB. Everything that has been submitted to DRB is public record, so I'll have Brad Cornelius go ahead and send it over to you guys to take a look at.
And just so the council's aware, this is what you'll see at this point is a concept plan, so it is very general. The next step that they're going to go to DRB with in November will be the next level up in a preliminary. But what I have right now is the concept plan, which I'll send to you. I do, just so everybody is also aware, just out front, they are designing this consistent with the downtown design guidelines. They are having the building proposed in the front on Main Street with the parking on the back along Oakdale with the buffering. So you will, when you see that, you will see they are following the design guidelines as required.
So that's the parking on Oakdale. That's the property that has the fence around it.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
In the yellow house. Okay.
Yes. Yes. And it goes all the way down to 5th.
So if we didn't create a firestorm, by now, I need to get all this in by 2020, not 2021. We have to start, fresh on 2021 for everybody.
I need to reevaluate my hobby. All right. So obviously lots and lots going on. We talked about Halloween. We've been meeting virtually via executive order now for probably 4 or 5 months. The executive order as it stands today expires at the end of this month, and the message that the governor sent was to be prepared to meet in person for November. So we will see. Certainly that message is stronger than we had seen previously. The governor has a habit of putting these out on the last day of the month, about 4 o'clock. So we will we'll see how it goes, but there's a good chance we'll be in person next month. Robert?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. The executive order expires on Halloween. So do expect to meet in person on November 10th and then subsequent meetings after that. We still are allowed to do hybrid meetings from what I understand, to where you have the majority, the quorum of council in person, and then the others can be somewhat virtual. But I do think with the amount of space that we have in town hall, we may have some of you up on top of the stage, some on the bottom of the stage, and then we'll have plenty of area for adequate social distancing within actual town hall. So we're working up that game plan right now. So we'll be ready by November 10th. As you guys know, we've been in Zoom meetings, workshops, charrettes over the last month, I would say. So, I think everybody understands what we've been up to. In the interest of time, I'll just end it there. We have the Bessie project discussion with the residents on October 23rd, I believe. And then we have our workshop on what day is our workshop?
The resident meeting is the 21st.
The resident meeting is on the 21st, and then our workshop is on the 27th of October. So we'll be talking about the Bessie project and First and Forest as well.
Robert?
Yep.
As far as I know, we're doing door hangers for the Bessie project, but has that been added to the town calendar also? I would like that to be an open meeting, not just specifically for people who get door hangers. In light of the other projects, I would like everyone to have all the information on all these stormwater projects and road projects that we're doing, so that we keep the communication flowing.
Understood. I mean, the intent of doing the door hangers, we wanted to initially engage the people that are directly impacted by the project, so we have more time to talk to them before we open it up to the entire public.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
I'd also like to explore in the future, if we could. I feel like even though it's been challenging for some people to attend via Zoom, we recognize that some people have, technology issues, but I feel like we've attracted more audience, people who, maybe can't commute from work or have other obligations at home that they can tend to simultaneously. And I would hate for us to lose that access. So if there's any way that we can facilitate, if we start having workshops or charrettes or things like that in person at town hall again, if we can find some way to continue a channel out to people so they can still participate remotely.
Yeah, we will incorporate that into our new plan for going on, because again, the elderly, they're still susceptible to the pandemic, so we don't want them coming out into the town council meeting. So it's a way to get them access if they want to access computers. But we will, Mr. Foglia brought that up a couple of years ago, and we just thought it would be just too much of an arduous task for staff to do this all at once. But as you can see, we've been doing it for the last 6 months, and I don't think there's been really any issues. So I'll be able to do both, as far as making sure that I'm addressing all of your needs and those of the public. So we'll incorporate Zoom into our future meetings.
Thank you.
All right. Chief?
Just that one time.
All right, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, catching up after phase 3, we've done a lot of training here recently, catching up with a lot of items. We have sent 2 of our officers through de-escalation and bias-based profiling, which are actually instructors now. We just completed 8 courses, joint training courses with the Ocoee Police Department and our police department. defensive tactics in the morning, and de-escalation training in the afternoon. So we're all caught up to speed. In addition to that, Shadrach King, we sent him to a crisis intervention school, and DC attended another school as well. So we're keeping up as quick as we can with all these paces, and our goal has always been to have 100% of our officers fully qualified on that, which well surpasses the state requirements there. As you guys know, I sent an email out a couple of weeks ago. We have a sergeant's exam coming up, so it'll be great for us, first sergeant's exam that we have had since we've been here. So our mentoring program is working pretty well. 3 officers are up in the queue for that, and we have contracted an outside agency to make sure that we do that. We also begun basic rifle training today. That's going on for the next 3 days. I'll be out there tomorrow. I was out with the guys today. That is part of our JAG grant program. Monies came in from that. Actually, as you know, the last couple of years, the monies have been held back quite a bit. So we actually have 3 grants out at the same time. 2 more are coming in for the Aeroclave that just got approved. And I think we have 1 more for some computers or something else that we had going there. Monthly report went out today, so it went out a little bit late if you guys got a chance to see that. Traditional stats, but you guys pretty much get the daily anyway, so nothing's on there. That's a surprise. I got an opportunity to speak to the Rotary Club this morning. I think that went pretty well. Great group there. Talked about some collaboration efforts we can do in the future. And also got the chance to attend the Savvy Memorial this past weekend. So I'm glad we had an opportunity to do that. We will work on sometime this week about the Halloween parade. I'll make sure I have something go out to the public that we can post on the town website and on my websites as well. So unless anybody has any questions, that's it.
Mayor, just before we break, let you know that we just received notice this afternoon that demo would probably start on Friday of the old town facilities between 7 and 9 a.m. So once we have locked in that date and that time, we'll let you know. But definitely next week, the buildings are coming down.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. And Chief, I wasn't sure if you'd bring it up or not. I want to make sure everybody knows that the approval process for the Robbie German renaming of the Windermere Post Office is moving through Senate. So we're very pleased about that and want everybody to be aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate the Senate support on that they reached out and very much supportive on that initiative.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Councilor Ramos. Gotcha.
I have nothing, Your Honor, Mayor.
Gee whiz. All right, Dorothy.
No, sir.
I see you. Anything to add? All right, good. Scott.
I'm good. Y'all have our project meetings notes. We've been moving all public works back into our temporary facilities and getting that the old buildings ready for the demolition. So we're looking forward to that. It's been busy and tough and chasing rainstorms and filling in roads as they wash out on a daily basis. I appreciate all council's assistance and direction on moving forward with these road projects, and definitely understand the maintenance concept. 4 miles of road before 4 miles of dirt road before it be a road to maintain. We can certainly do it, and we'll definitely come up with a plan. So with that said, have a good evening, everyone.
All right, I want to thank council, staff, and certainly all the residents for attending tonight. We had a good turnout and a lot of good input, and we will see everybody hopefully in a month from now on Tuesday. What is it, the 11th or 12th?
10th.
For 10th for November, or at a workshop before then. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.